Yo, 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 what's up? Happy New Year. Um, Elephant in the room. I'm sorry, the Euron crow's eye in the room is my. This is actually Grey Waste Tim. I know it's hard to tell. He's in deep cover here, but that is Grey Waste Tim. And I'm also joined by Hero with 1,000 Voices. And we are here to talk about The Forsaken, the most psychedelic and the most twisted chapter that George Martin has written so far for A Song of Ice and Fire. Isn't that a good way to start the year and to follow up on my False Dragons video, which y'all did a great job of watching. Thank you. And so, yeah, say hi, Tim. What's possessing you today?
The spirit that rides the red comet, the bleeding star will bespoke the end, and we'll get right into that as soon as we can. But yes, hello everybody, it's me, Grey Waste Tim, and as you all know, I am a very big Euron fan, so whenever we do these Euron heavy chapters, I tend to go a little bit overboard, and so I went full King Euron. These are actual shark teeth attached to this crown.
Is that a reference to the 1980s rom-com Overboard, where somebody loses their memory after... Oh, I knew you would get that, Sean. I knew you would... Let's bring the chat in on that one to see if anybody's as old as me. Hi. And Sean, what's up? How are you doing, man? You put out a sick video like 2 weeks ago, so let's just shout that out real quick before this thing gets lost in a tide of shade of the evening.
Thanks. Yeah, I put out a Christmas Carol video for my Patreon, and it ended up being the longest video I've ever done on YouTube. I try not to ever go that long, but since it's Patreon, I figure you want to be there. So it is almost a full hour. And that is a function of me finding way more than I thought I would on a Christmas Carol. I was shocked to find the amount of material there. But yeah, going forward, I am putting out a couple, maybe 3 videos on Arthurian lore on my YouTube channel. And then after that, I'm going to get back to the video that I was pushing on your streams before I put it on hold for A Christmas Carol. And that is my Mycenaean Greek mythology video and how the Greek gods kind of evolved. And that'll be for Patreon.
Nice. Well, that is definitely right in your wheelhouse of expertise. So we'll look forward to that. And thank you for always bringing your expertise to the show, to the program. So I just want to shout out Morris Crowfood and the entire Discord reread in our Discord, which, well, one second. There's yet another piece of evidence for Stygia being the home of the meteorite space demon god, Tim. You'll be happy to hear this. So originally, George called the shadow, or the heart of the shadow, Stygia, he called it the wound instead of the shadow. And he recycled that name for the red comet. It's a couple of times a red wound in the sky. So yet another piece of evidence that, yes, the in the heart of shadow is... What else could it be? I mean, come on. We know it's the damn meteor.
Well, and if you were with me last week for the Lovecraft Holiday Festival, we discovered new evidence for there being possible dragon eggs down in the crypts of Winterfell for John to find. I read the Yuletide Lovecraft story, The Festival, which is the first appearance of the Byakhee, the dead dragons. The Byakhee, when they are first summoned, our protagonist follows a parade down across the churchyard, through the Lich Yard, which is a graveyard, and then underground into some crypts. And it is down in those crypts underneath the churchyard where the Byakhee are first summoned. So, dead dragons down in the crypts sounds a lot like dragons down in the crypts of Winterfell. That is
well,
our
we
first
know George has put... Sorry, Tim. I was just saying, we know George is putting lots of dragon ideas down there. It's just a matter of, is it all Jon Snow symbolism, or is there something kind of like with the Stone Kings? Like, there's all this... Seems like they should wake up somehow, but how are the statues going to move? Are there some green seers down there? Are the other spirits are tied? Like, so many cool theories about how that could happen. Yeah, I definitely think there will be a dragon thing. I like the egg theory. That's my best theory, but, you know, could be a Valerian artifact or one of Rhaegar's books that he reads. So just real quickly, Tim, I want you to appreciate my shirt. It's not, I didn't cosplay, but I figured this was kind of Euron Crow's Eye appropriate.
Why birds destroy your mind?
Yeah. I bought this shirt as fast as I could, obviously, when I saw it in the mall, because I live with birds. Yeah. Watch any of my live streams from 4 years ago or more, and you can go insane too. Okay, so yeah, the Rhaegar's harp is, I mean, maybe that would be poetic. I don't know if Ned's harps are kind of big, you know. I don't know if Ned only brought Lyanna's bones, he left everyone else's bones down there. I don't know if maybe that's why Barbie Dustin is so mad. She's like, you brought that harp, you didn't bring my husband's bones.
Look, lady, it's been like 16 years. Stop harping on it.
All right. Sean, everyone.
Harp was poetic. I had to do something. But, yeah, real quick, another little piece of evidence, something that I've been messing with, an idea I've been messing with a little bit towards your, Styx, River. Dany, you talked a lot about how Dany is related to Danu, the primordial river goddess that kind of made her way into most mythologies. The Styx is actually not just a river; it's a literal goddess, and she is the daughter of an Oceanid nymph and an ocean god. So Tethys and an Oceanid nymph. So it's definitely like Danu is analogous to Styx for a million different reasons, and her being a major meteor character, and her whole alchemical wedding being essentially comet moon meteor, it makes a lot of sense when you think of Styx and the shadow as essentially creating the long night.
Yeah, you see the modern version of Danu, especially in Indian mythology. She's very nice looking and polished up, and there's not a lot of chaos goddess there. But she's the mother of Varitra, the three-headed dragon. So it's still like it's there, the association. Yeah. So real quick, another just again, I did make a video. It's the 3 false dragons. You guys did watch that a whole bunch, so I do appreciate that. Tim, I'm definitely anxious to hear your thoughts on the video. And just real quick, I thought you guys would find this funny. Somebody commented, love the video, but that sound you used for Dragonbinder was really annoying. And I was like, yeah.
So it was correct.
So, yeah. So mission accomplished.
Right. So much ink is spilled on just how annoying it is. Like everyone, you can't even stand it. And that is, of course, a few people have recognized that. It's the beginning of the album, The Shape of Punk to Come by Refused. The song is called Worms of the Senses, Faculties of the Skull. And I believe it is a trumpet fed into a guitar amp with lots of distortion. And that's why it howls. It gets all weird. In any case, Tim, your thoughts on the false dragons? And then I'll ask Sean the same question. And then we'll get into the chapter.
Yeah, I think you did a great job covering all the aspects of them, especially with the Stannis stuff, because Stannis, I feel like, is one that kind of always gets forgotten about in this whole thing. But it's like, yeah, he does have Targaryen ancestry. Robert's claim, even though we all know it was a war of conquest, he claims lineage from the Targaryens because of his grandmother. And so, like, there is a reason why Melisandre thinks that he is Azor Ahai, even though it kind of flies in the face of what Benero and Makoro are prophesizing. But I think that was one, going into his whole shtick, was one that like never really gets a lot of coverage.
Well, and it could just be because I'm always thinking about symbolism. And Sean, I'll get your thoughts here. But it really struck me when I reread the Stannis scenes, like smashing the stained glass windows and destroying all the It wasn't just that they burned the Seven. Like this is like Al-Qaeda destroying the ancient like Persian statues and stuff. Like this is crazy destruction of culture here.
Yeah, it's also definitely George pulling motifs from a number of his favorite movies. So is it Devil's Advocate or which one, where they smash all the stained glass windows in the church and I can't remember.
A lot goes on in that movie. I can't remember. Go ahead though.
But yeah, I mean, it's a well supported idea. The three false dragons. I've gone back and forth on whether I think Tyrion is a false dragon and Euron is a real one, not a real Targaryen, but the real third head of the dragon. And they both have a lot of evidence to support either one. But the important thing I think to acknowledge is that if there's going to be a real three heads of the dragon, there is going to be an all-star team of the failures too. There's going to be, three false heads. And that's not anything to do with any prophecy we've seen. That just makes sense with the way that everything is reflected, the way that we have an even star figure for every morning star figure, the way we have an evolution for every morning star figure turning into an even star figure. There's always a character foil who's showing opposite symbolism in the way, and that's not just a George R. R. Martin thing. That's just good writing. So
that's why I said it's in the Bible, and I really thought the Wheel of Time example was instructive once we thought about that, because it's false dragon, but it could mean different things and they could still be interesting. And that's exactly what George is doing. And then there's also the aspect of people trying to force the prophecy to make it happen. And that's very what Mel is doing, obviously. So yeah. And what's interesting about who's I definitely, if I had to bet on either Tyrion or Euron to definitely ride a dragon, I would bet on Euron first. He's definitely going to sit on a dragon. I think Tyrion might sit on it for a hot second before Euron steals it or something. Or maybe he'll ride on Dany's dragon. I'm not positive that he's going to be Mr. Dragon Rider on his own. That would be an interesting way for King's Landing to get messed up, though. Tyrion's anger against the people connected with him riding a dragon. We could see that. But, it's not, whatever Tyrion's bloodline is, everyone can see he's going to be on Team Dany for a little while, and he already knows Jon. So it's pretty easy to see the Dany, Jon, Tyrion working together by the end of the story thing. I mean, all of Tyrion's scenes at the wall in Game of Thrones seem set up for him to come back to the wall. Men like you are needed up here, a kind of giant shadow, blah, 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 blah. So.
Also, just the amount of the Witch King of Angmar that I see in Euron. Obviously, he's got a lot of Sauron in him, but really the way that Sauron was written is he's kind of a pale imitation of Morgoth, and then the Witch King of Angmar is kind of a pale imitation of Sauron. And the Witch King of Angmar,
like a Russian nesting doll, yeah,
right. And he's an even star figure who wields a morning star, and he is fighting Éowyn, who's got morning built into her name, and it is supposed to be reflective. And yes, he's a man, but they call him a witch, which is meant to kind of blur the gender lines anyway. So they are reflecting
style. Yeah.
Right. So they're reflecting each other. He's doing a lot of, Satan, even star stuff, which makes a lot of sense. And
Sean, let me ask you a question. Tim was talking about the Bayaki, which is like a corpse dragon. What are the things that the ring wraiths are riding? They're not the normal dragons of Morgoth and stuff. They're some sort of what are they?
So one of the names for the ring wraiths that we were calling them is actually the name for their mounts. So originally they have the black mounts, and they call them either the ring wraiths or the cloaked, riders, whatever. But then later, they get on those. Tolkien will never admit that they're dragons, but they're dragons.
Okay.
And God, what were the?
Well, they don't breathe fire. That's the main thing to make something a dragon. So if they don't breathe fire, there's some sort of wyvern or worm or something.
Not even all of Tolkien's dragons breathe fire. Some of them don't breathe fire. Some of them actually, we found out very recently, breathe frost. So this year we found that out. But fell beasts is one thing that they're called. What was the other?
Drakes?
What was the other name? No, they're not drakes. The drakes are actual dragons in Tolkien's world.
What is keep saying fell beast? Well, in any case, Tim, you're muted.
I'm muted?
Oh, not anymore. No, sorry, I just didn't hear you. Maybe.
Hello.
Yeah, you're good. Sorry.
Yeah, Nazgul.
Oh, that's the word we're looking for. Sorry, so the Nazgul. That is the name of the mounts.
I thought the Nazgul.
No, it's kind of conflated.
Okay, we don't. That's cool, but I was just trying to get to the idea that it's kind of a similar maybe we're just all trying to be spooky or whatever. But when you look at Martin's influences for Euron riding a dragon, with all the Sauron Witch King stuff, you know what I mean? Like his mount should be a fell beast. That's what the stone beast breathing shadow fire line. I mean that's you know what I mean? That's right in that ballpark, isn't it? Isn't it, Tim?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, with that said, let's get into the chapter. Welcome back, chat. Thanks for being here. Yes, I took last Sunday off just to make sure so that you guys would appreciate me a little. No, it's because I was sick. I lost my voice. It is back. I did record a Baylor Breakspear video last night, so back in the saddle, about 95%. And yeah. I do appreciate y'all joining me, though, every Sunday. 2 hours by myself would be less interesting and harder on my voice, so, you know. Sean, why don't you go ahead and kick us off here? And let me see. What kind of speaking roles let me hold on a second. There's Aeron and Euron, and that's about it.
There's Folly Flowers.
And Yuri.
Yuri. There's Lucas Codd and the Red Oarsman.
Do we just want to like take turns reading a couple paragraphs, or I mean, it's not really much of a dialogue. It's just only two people in the dialogue. Either that, or you know, Tim will do Euron, obviously, and one of us will do Damphair.
You've done Aeron before. You have a good Aeron voice. I'll do all the guest voices, and I can just do a lot of the regular reading.
Okay, well, actually, Tim, why don't you start us off, and then once the speaking comes in, we'll figure it out.
It was always midnight in the belly of the beast. The mutes had robbed him of his robe and shoes and breech clout. He wore hair and chains and scabs. Salt water sloshed about his legs whenever the tide came in, rising as high as his genitals, only to ebb again when the tide receded. His feet had grown huge and soft and puffy, shapeless things as big as hams. He knew that he was in some dungeon, but not where or for how long.
Could we just stop and get some doctors in the chat? What's happening to the feet here? I'd be very concerned if my feet were huge and soft and puffy from being wet in seawater for days and days. What's happening here?
So I think two things are happening real quick. First off, he normally has extremely calloused and black feet because he walks everywhere in the Iron Island.
Yes.
So I think one thing that's happened is he's gotten his hugely calloused feet are like waterlogged and it's all gross, and the calloused skin, it's like dying and hasn't sloughed off, but it's not good.
He's he's essentially getting trench foot.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, this is how I feel like this stream is now officially starting. This is where we needed to go. All right, trench foot. So that's fun. Yeah. Concerning. Carry on, Tim.
There had been another dungeon before this one. In between there had been the ship, the Silence. The night they moved him, he had seen the moon floating on a black wine sea with a leering face that reminded him of Euron. Rats moved in the darkness, swimming through the water. They would bite him as he slept until he woke and drove them off with shouts and thrashings. Aeron's beard and scalp crawled with lice and fleas and worms. He could feel them moving through his hair, and the bites itched him intolerably. His chains were so short that he could not reach to scratch. The shackles that bound him to the wall whirled and rusted, and his fetters had cut into his wrists. When the tide rushed in to kiss him, the salt got into the wounds and made him gasp.
So this is almost like a Roman crucifixion here, where he's just strung up and being exposed with like all these various wounds. I just want to point out, it's the least of all the things that's afflicting him. But when you can never sleep for more than 30 minutes at a time, your consciousness gets extremely fragmented after a while. Like, it's rough, even if you don't have rusty shackles and, you know, fleas and rats biting you and trench foot. So he's already going to be like super duper loopy as well as very miserable before Aeron even pours Shade of the Evening down his throat. So he's having a very bad time is kind of what I want to draw attention to. And, of course, the black wine sea with the leering face that remind him of Euron. Euron, Sean, will you explain one of the meanings of the name Euron where it relates to Greek mythology, please?
Sure. It's a dichotomy between two moons of Saturn and, or sorry, is it of Jupiter or
Jupiter.
Saturn? I think. Okay, Jupiter, and they are Europa and Io, who are like you said, two characters in Greek mythology. And the actual moons, astronomically, one of them is an ice moon and one is a fire moon. Europa is an ice moon. Io is a fire moon. Io is a woman who gets turned into a cow, and then she ends up mothering a line of heroes as the consolation for how horrible Zeus treated her.
And she's also an ancestor of Europa. Europa is descended from Io, and she's also a cow, right?
Right. Well, in Europa is actually, if you go through the mythology of the Golden Fleece and all of that, again, you're having, sacrificial animals and horned animals and all that. But she is why it is named Europe, ostensibly. So, and not that that's super important for symbolic reasons, but the ice moon and Euron being an icy figure, I was just reading a chapter last night where Aeron is told that Balin died, and they're talking about how Euron is already there. And somebody mentioned the name Euron, and he says the room grew colder. And it's like, well, yeah, of course it did. He's an ice moon figure. Every scene that he's in, there's ice moon symbolism. And if you see Io in a name, just like if you see EUR in Euron, if you see Io in a name like Sirio or Aeron or any of those, they're all fire moon figures.
Yeah, that does seem to track. I remember when you told me that. And Europa, the name Europa means like broad, wide, and it's usually applied to faces. So the moon being Europa, it's got a broad face like that. This makes sense. So here we see the leering face that reminds him of Euron. That's the moon. So this is George showing us where the name comes from and that he's aware of all this mythology. And that leads us back to the fact that Europa is an ice moon. Like it's literally a ball, rock covered with an ocean, covered with an ice crust. And Io is a volcano moon. So they're very archetypal for ice and fire moons. And that's good stuff. And then, of course, they're both goddesses abducted by Zeus and aggressively a salty, R-wordy storm god, Tim, to sort of put it back in your corner. We've got sort of a King in Yellow vibe, if you will.
Yeah. This also reminds me of one of the old torture method called the boats. But this is like the opposite, where they're not feeding the boats, where they would nail you in between two boats and force feed you milk and honey until you essentially shat yourself and filled the boat up with it. And then you'd be stuck in your own bile and waste while insects would come in and they would basically eat you alive. It's one of the worst torture methods ever devised.
I'm often reminded of that.
Cheerful. Turns out also the best torture has always just been fire. Yeah, you want to kill someone, you want it to hurt as much as possible.
Moving along, gentlemen, I'm pain averse. I have no tattoos. I'm terrified of any little pain. Let's not. I guess I started it emphasizing how miserable he is, but I've had enough now. So, so Euron is the last thing I want to say about Ice Moon and Euron. Look at Tim. He looks like he has frostbite. Like. The others are very like vampires. They're George's ice vampires. And so he's used, anytime you see the word frostbite or see people experiencing frostbite, he's using it for icy conversion symbolism. It ties into Craster's axe having the bite and Ned's sword ice having the bite. And the bite cold and sharp as a leech and all that. I'm not going to get lost on it, but the point is, people drinking Shade of the Evening have magical symbolic frostbite. That turns their lips blue. They look cold. They're pale. Everything in the House of the Undying was ice symbolism with the cold shadow, blue heart, and all that stuff. So Euron being an ice moon, he's pouring Shade of the Evening into his face, just like what Tim is doing right there. You see, he's got the blue liquid in the blue cup. This is the moon drinking darkness, and that's just Long Night symbolism, but it's coded for ice. So it's really cool. I just love that stuff. And of course, he's got the two eyes, which it shows you the two moons in microcosm. He's got the smiling eye, which is blue, smiling like a moon crescent. And then the blood eye, dark and terrible, is like the messed up fire moon, like what's left of it. It's the black stone, the meteors, the black swords, and all that stuff. So
blood moon. Yeah. Well,
and all that stuff.
Another thing that you mentioned, and it just sounds very shamanic, is talking about not being able to sleep for more than like 20, 30 minutes at a time, repeatedly over time, and how it messes with your consciousness. That is a shamanic induction. So
it is. It's a lucid dreaming technique. That's how I first ran into it. And of course, that's going to be an older technique. So yeah, if you wake yourself up every 30 minutes for a couple hours, you'll remember your dreams a lot easier, and you can sort of drop in and out of the lucid dreaming state. And don't try that at home, probably. It's
not good for you.
No. But it does fit with the chapter, obviously, because the whole chapter is Euron entering Damphair's mind and giving him nightmares and drawing him into this psychedelic state. So let's see here. When he slept, the darkness would rise up and swallow him, and then the dream would come, and Yuri, and the scream of a rusted hinge, and also Dragonbinder and Nissa and Widow's. It's the same scream, you guys. It's the door of death opening to let the ravens into the world. It's, that hinge. The only light in his wet world came from the lanterns that the visitors brought with them, and it came so seldom that it began to hurt his eyes. A nameless, sour-faced man brought his food, salt beef as hard as wooden shingles. George is cooking here. Bread crawling with weevils, slimy, stinking fish. Ew, that's the worst. Aeron gobbled it down and hoped for more, though oft as not he retched the meal up after. The man who brought the food was dark, dour, and mute. His tongue was gone. Aeron did not doubt.
That was Euron's way. Oh, and so I do want to say, this actually is a real thing pirates would do, is a lot of times they would eat in darkness because so that they wouldn't have to see the weevils and worms crawling on the hardtack that they ate. They could kind of ignore it. And just as he said, he would retch most of it up. And I know I'm sorry to disgust everyone by bringing up the boats again, but with him shackled to the wall, nowhere else to go, where's he puking? Where's everything going? This is why he's getting trench foot. He's essentially living in his own toilet at the moment. That is, and it's salt water, so all that's also going into his open wounds.
Yeah, I was about to say the water sloshing around down there that's some gray water. Anyway.
At a certain point, it's not even, salt water anymore. Not that it's drinkable.
It's everything water. It's just sewage. That was
Chad's like, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go. You got something? If you want to make it worse, go right ahead.
Oh, I lost it.
Oh, it'll come back. The light would leave when the mute did, and once again his world would become a damp darkness smelling of grime and mold and feces. Sometimes Euron came himself. Aeron would wake from sleep to find his brother standing over him, lantern in hand. Once aboard the Silence, he hung the lantern from a post and poured them cups of wine.
So real quick,
before
I remembered it. His tongue was gone. Aeron did not doubt. We have a very, very graphic chapter of somebody losing a tongue in this series. And that is the chapter with Varamir, Sixskins, and Thistle. Mm-hmm. And so it is a silencing, biting your tongue is silencing yourself. We have a few characters who repeatedly have to do it. Arya has to bite her tongue all the time. She's constantly biting her lip too. But the point is it's both a silencing, and if you bite off your tongue, Thistle drowned on her own blood when she bit off her tongue. So that is a way, it's a flooding of the neck thing as well as a silence. So it's kind of checks two boxes in the Werewood Stigmata. So when we're talking about a thrall, who does not speak, he's been silenced, and is missing a tongue, this is symbolically somebody who has been taken over by skin changing. This is somebody who's been Hodored. And that the implication is that Euron is controlling these people like some sort of Lord of the Others. And he's got a bunch of whites.
It's at least softly implied, and some people think that he potentially is doing that. It gets back to the question of, does Euron have green seer powers? Did Bloodraven visit him in his dreams? What's going on with that? We also don't know the extent of what Shade of the Evening does. It does seem like a weird inverse of Weirwood magic. So it could be that Shade of the Evening warlock practitioners can do a lot of green seer type stuff. We really don't know. That's kind of what makes Euron fun. It's one of those corners of the story where we can't pin down exactly what's going on. Like we've talked about, maybe a Lovecraftian entity will invade Euron's mind. How do we know that hasn't happened already by this point? We don't. So
a couple good points made in the chat is that Joffrey had the bard's tongue removed. I don't know.
That was a brutal scene.
Yeah. And then same thing up in the Eyrie with Peter Baelish and Marillion.
Yep. And ultimately the Weirwoods have a bloody mouth and have faces that don't talk. So like we should connect all of this back to the most important version of any of these parallels, which to me would be the Weirwood. So we talk about silencing. This is like silencing the voice of nature. The green trees were defiled and bloodied and hollowed out and made like whites, like white trees, undead trees. So something about the silencing, think about the children singing the song of earth. Like that's what's been silenced, kind of the song of earth. So it makes sense that Euron would be a focal point of this silent symbolism because he is a #abomination and he is killing all the god. Well, we'll get to that. So Tim, go ahead with the lines here.
Well, it is. I just want to say there is a reference to a song. We know that George loves making references to old songs that he likes, and it is The Sound of Silence. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. And that's exactly what's going on in this chapter.
Wow.
Yeah. And
nice.
Here he comes, lantern in hand, right? Under cover of a street lamp.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. Yeah, the whole song applies to Euron and Aeron.
Oh, they made a god? Oh.
Yeah. So it tracks pretty well. It's also just, it was a time when there was more meaning in lyrics. But
true.
Yeah, you want to talk about the Weirwoods and silencing the Weirwoods. We had another singer who was he didn't have his tongue cut off, but Tyrion did threaten to cut his tongue off, and then they ended up killing him and throwing him in a bowl of brown weirwood paste style.
That's true. Simon Silvertongue or Sylvan Tongue.
Right.
Song of the Elves. Let me bring you songs from the wood. Not quite. 95%. We'll get there. All right.
All right. Do you want me to do you're on here? Or who are we
I'm curious to see what your Aeron might be. I think everyone's heard mine before. Why don't you do it, Sean? Let me let my guest shine. Go ahead, Tim, and Sean, take Aeron.
All right, so once aboard the Silence, he hung the lantern from a post and poured the cups of wine. Drink with me, brother, he said. That night he wore a shirt of iron scales and a cloak of blood-red silk. His eye patch was red leather, his lips blue.
Why am I here? Aeron croaked at him. His lips were crusty with scabs, his voice hard. Where are we sailing?
South. For conquest, plunder, dragons.
Madness. My place is on the islands.
Your place is where I want you. I am your king.
What do you want of me?
What can you offer me that I have not had before? I left the islands in the hands of old Eric Ironmaker and sealed his loyalty with the hand of our sweet Asha. I would not have you preaching against his rule, so I took you with us.
Release me. The god commands it.
Drink with me. Your king commands it.
Euron grabbed a handful of the priest's tangled black hair, pulled his head back, and lifted the wine cup to his lips. But what flowed into his mouth was not wine. It was thick and viscous, a taste that seemed to change with every swallow. Now bitter, now sour, now sweet. Sounds like some of the names of the weed strains you get at this. It's like it's sweet and sour with grapes and also truck fuel and skunks. When Aeron tried to spit it out, his brother tightened his grip and forced more down his throat without any sexual innuendo at all.
Yeah, it's a lot. But they are on a ship that's full of seamen.
Sometimes Euron came himself.
Oh, jeez.
That's right. I didn't point it out a minute ago, but...
Yeah. There was no way we were going to avoid all that.
Go ahead, Tim. Line.
Yeah. That's it, priest. Gulp it down. The wine of the warlocks, sweeter than your seawater, with more truth in it than all the gods of earth.
I curse you,
Aeron said when the cup was empty. Liquor dripped from down his chin into his long black beard.
If I had the tongue of every man who cursed me, I could make a cloak of them.
Aeron.
Focus, gentlemen.
It's hard. He's not creating clear divisions of who is speaking.
Oh, time. Yes. I meant to warn you about that. This is not formatted super great. Yeah, sorry. I didn't know, but...
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's the reality of what we're dealing with. This was not, run
I thought you were distracted by the spittle and the dripping into the beard and stuff.
No, that's hot. Although I was thinking Blackbeard, they're on a ship here and, you bring up a black beard.
Yes. It was also the legend of Bloodbeard. I don't know if that's the inspiration for the Blackbeard thing, but the Bloodbeard is even an older folkloric thing, and it's very Mad Axe-like.
Oh, yeah, Blackbeard has become somewhat mythologized, but he was a real person. He was he was in the Royal Navy. His name was Edward Teach. He became, this legendary figure later, but he's real. Bloodbeard is the myth. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Aeron hawked and spat. The spittle struck his brother's cheek and hung there, blue-black, glistening. Euron flicked it off his face with a forefinger, then licked the finger clean.
This chapter, man.
Your god will come for you tonight. Some god, at least. And when the Damphair slept, sagging in his chains, he heard the creak of a rusted hinge.
Yuri!
He cried. There is no hinge here, no door, no Yuri. His brother Euron was long dead. Yet there he stood. One arm was black and swollen, stinking with maggots. But he was still Yuri, still a boy, no older than the day he died.
You know what waits below the sea, brother?
The drowned god,
Aeron said.
The watery halls.
Worms. Worms await you, Aeron.
When he laughed, his face sloughed off, and the priest saw that it was not Yuri, but Euron, the smiling eye hidden. He showed the world his blood eye now, dark and terrible, clad head to heel in scale as dark as onyx. He sat upon a mound of blackened skulls as dwarfs capered round his feet and a forest burned behind him. I think there's kind of an elephant in the room that we have to talk about as far as, Euron here. And the sense that I'm getting is that Euron is representing essentially part of Euron that had to be sacrificed. And all of the symbolism is horrifying. Euron is essentially violating himself, as well as Aeron. He was, pulling the rusted hinge at Euron's door as well. And he already has some sacrificial idea there because he had to cut off the hand, right? So him losing that hand, and then it crept all the way up the arm because the wound festered essentially. That then it becomes a breaking of the arm of Dorn thing, and all of that had to happen to Euron symbolically as a proxy for Euron, who essentially he needed to be whole for the plot to take place. So he needed a proxy that was part of him that he treats horribly.
That's interesting because, yeah, his face, I mean, he goes from Yuri to Euron. So that's a very interesting interpretation.
Yeah. And because we're at it, Euron's eyes are showing. So firstly, so Euron has heterochromia. There are 3 kinds of heterochromia. There's central, segmental, and full. Euron has full. That is when both your eyes are 2 different colors. Segmental is when part of your pupil is a different color than the rest. And then there's central. So now my eyes...
You muted yourself.
Shit. Trying to get like a good angle on my eye. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see how like my eyes are naturally blue, but there's sort of like a gold ring around the pupil before it turns blue.
A little bit. It's kind of hard to see, but I think I can see that.
Yeah, I have central heterochromia, but my eyes are naturally blue. But then the blood eye is revealed.
Lower, Tim, lower. No, your face, not the camera. We're seeing below your eye. Look into the... Oh my. Okay.
It's the cat's eye, too.
Yeah, it is. So... Oh, and that... When you bring up the cat's eye, that reminds me. For another song reference is going on here with Aeron. He is a holy diver. He's been down too long in the midnight sea. Got shiny diamonds like the eyes of a cat in the black and blue. Race for the morning. You can hide in the sun till you see the light. We will pray it's all right. Holy diver.
Somebody in the chat knows that that's Dio. Will you fix your camera so our heads are level again?
Okay.
Look at Euron trying to go below.
My ADHD demands it.
Another thing, and this is something that George is messing with a lot, and it's a pretty classic fantasy, and because it was so heavily referenced in the final season of Stranger Things, Cheshire Cat. So all of this cat symbolism that we see associated with Nissa and these moon figures, the Cheshire Cat with the moon behind him sitting on a branch, appearing and disappearing and doing magical stuff and being kind of a trickster, etc. It's all of that is playing into this cat-eyed version of Nissa. The what is it? The Shadow Cat, the Balerian.
The Shadow Cat has moon eyes in particular, yeah.
Right. And that was obviously a big theme. I'm sure everybody else connected it when they saw the most recent season of Stranger Things and somebody is wearing a white and light blue dress, carrying a magnifying glass or a looking glass all around the set. And then there's an Alice in Wonderland poster on the wall in that room. There was a lot of Alice in Wonderland in Stranger Things, the most recent season.
That's cool. I did not see it. I've only seen the debate about it, which we will not have in the chat because this is not that stream. But that's cool that people are doing stuff with symbolism. And yes, shout out to Tiger Woman. Absolutely. And Cersei and Cat and Sansa, who has cat's eyes, and et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I'll go ahead, Tim.
All right, so
you get the text back.
Or I'll read it, and you can mean mug for the camera. And also, I'll put the text back on the screen. Good idea, Sean. When he laughed, his face sloughed off, and the priest saw that it was not Yuri, but Euron. Or did we just read this? Oh, no, we did just read this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to read it again. Okay, so symbolism time. The dwarves. The dwarves are in all these things. I have to connect this to the dwarf that we saw at the Shade of the Evening Temple, and he was also in the vision, biting the woman and R-wording the woman, which I interpret as Westeros being pillaged. And I think that makes sense because Euron Crow's Eye, the book A Feast for Crows, is about the kings pecking at the flesh of Westeros, which is like a dead person. So like it seems like a running metaphor with all of this. And so I take the dwarves here as an extension of that. What do you think, Tim?
When Dany drinks the Shade of the Evening, it's actually like a little dwarf butler is the one who presents the glass to her at the House of the Undying.
Right.
And it's said that he's smaller than your average dwarf, so he's like super small, which kind of like brings up like, okay, what's going on there? Like, seems like this guy is a little bit special. This House of the Undying working dwarf butler. I don't know what else to call him, but dwarf butler.
And all of it is just like a weird parallel with the Children of the Forest and the Weirwoods. And then you got the shade trees of the dwarves. So it's all kind of consistent with Euron here. And then, in a minute, we're going to see all the gods impaled on the spikes of the Iron Throne. And everyone's like, well, what about the Weirwoods? What about the old gods? Well, we've got the burning forest here. And I think that's what that's about. Or just in general, again, the burning of Westeros and pillaging. So.
Also, we need to not think that the werewood gods, we need to stop thinking that the old gods are going to appear as werewoods in dreams. Like the werewoods are old gods only in that they have a spirit of somebody who was most definitely not a werewood before they died or before they got hooked up to the tree, whatever that USB-C port is. The idea is every time we see somebody in a dream, every time we see a skin changer or whatever, they appear as something else. So like when we see Bran, he's the wolf with wings. When we see Bloodraven, he's the three-eyed crow. Like everybody they appear differently in dreams than they are. We see in the show, we see a Carnunos looking person. And I think that is how a specific Green Seer or skin changer is appearing in the werewood net, not necessarily that there is a Carnunos like figure in Westeros at that time. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that when we see the old gods, they're going to look like people because at one point they were people or children of the forest. And if regular people are skewered, or they just say gods and they don't specify, are skewered on these iron spikes, that's all we need.
I think so too. But I would also point out in Bran's vision, the Weirwood does gaze back at him. The Heart Tree does. We don't know if that's Bloodraven or just like the whole Weirwood net looking at him. That one's a little ambiguous. There's a scene where Jon perceives Bran as a Weirwood tree with Bran's face, but that's specifically Bran. So, yeah. Hard to say.
That's the most interesting part to me because that means we've now seen Bran appear in different people's dreams as three different things.
Correct. A winged wolf, the weirwood tree with Bran's face, and then what was the other one?
I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was a third one. And the it was a wolf in chains. It was
that's the winged wolf, but Melisandre sees
Jojen saw him as a wolf in chains before he...
Yes, and calls him the winged wolf. He's the winged wolf, he's chained. But then Melisandre sees Bloodraven and Bran differently. It's a boy with a wolf's face and next to a corpse white person. So that's the third one.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I had those two backwards for some reason. But yeah. So we see the three-eyed crow. That's how Jojen sees him too. So Bran is setting a new precedent, which is, it also just tells us, we don't.
Well, there's the gnarled hand that wakes up Jon from his Azor Ahai dream. That could be Bloodraven's tree hand, his dream tree hand. Hard to say.
Or, like Talon. A Talon would appear gnarled or would feel gnarled.
Oh, like a crow talon. Maybe. It's described as a hand.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim. Speech.
The bleeding star bespoke the end. These are the last days when the world shall be broken and remade. A new god shall be born from the graves and charnel pits. Then Euron lifted a great horn to his lips and blew. Oh. And dragons and krakens and sphinxes came at his command and bowed before him. Kneel, brother, the crow's eye commanded. I am your king. I am your god. Worship me and I will raise you up to be my priest.
Never. No godless man may sit the sea stone chair.
Why would I want that hard black rock? Brother, look again and see where I am seated.
Aeron Damphair looked. The mound of skulls was gone. Now it was metal underneath the crow's eye. A great, tall, twisted seat of razor-sharp iron, barbs and blades and broken swords, all dripping blood. Impaled upon the longer spikes were the bodies of the gods. The maiden was there, and the father and the mother, the warrior and crone and smith, even the stranger. They hung side by side with all manner of queer foreign gods. The great shepherd and the black goat, three-headed Trios and the pale child Bacalon, Lord of Light and the butterfly god of Nath.
No, not Jolly Green Giant Butterfly God of Nath.
Oh, so this is good, though. So, like, we go through the gods we know, but then we talk about queer foreign gods, the great shepherd and the black goat. That's it. He paired those together for a reason. Those are supposed to be separate gods, but what does a shepherd do? I mean, usually it's, with sheep, right? But goats get shepherded. So, like, is that really a, two separate gods, or is that kind of a symbiotic relationship there?
Okay, yeah, let me cook this a little further. Three-headed Trios has three heads. One devours the dying, and the third gives birth to the, rebirth to the dead, and we don't know what the middle one does, so it's a death and rebirth thing. Pale child Bacalon, he is the god of soldiers and holds a sword. So this is a child, a symbol of birth, but also a symbol of death. So it's a death birth thing, just like Trios. And then Lord of Light and Butterfly God of Nath. This is R'hllor and Garth, basically, right?
Yeah, also, Trios is one letter off from Krios, the Greek titan of constellations. He was, he was also the god of the south, or the titan of the Lord of the South, is I guess how they depicted him. And he is usually depicted with ram's horns, and he's linked to Ares.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And yes, Bacalon the Pale Child is from other George stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
He symbolizes the innocence of soldiers dying in war. That's interesting. Yeah. That fits. That fits.
And the Great Shepherd and the Black Goat are also sneaky Lovecraft references. So the first appearance of Hastur is in Ambrose Bierce's The Haisha the Shepherd, where Hastur is a benevolent god of shepherds. So the Great Shepherd would be the original Hastur. And then the Black Goat, which is the Black Goat of Qohor, along with referencing Baphomet, it's also one of the Lovecraftian gods, Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat with 1,000 young, the one who walks the forest. So this is showing like a slaying of a Lovecraftian god, as well as the abandonment of Hastur as a benevolent god. And as he moves from Ambrose Bierce to Chambers to Lovecraft and so on, he drops this facade of being a benevolent god and turns into the more malevolent Hastur, the Lovecraftian Cthulhu god of cosmic winds who rides a red star.
If your pastor's name is Hastur, you want to get out of there fastor.
Al Pastor. But yeah, and really what George here and also H.P. Lovecraft, they're both really referencing the Bible. When you talk about the Great Shepherd, you talk about the Lamb of God, you talk about, the Black Goat has long been, it's basically just the green man demonized by Christianity. So it's looked at one way in Lovecraft. It seems to be being portrayed in a similar way here, which makes a lot of sense, obviously, because I don't have to tell you guys. Tim has talked about it enough. With
never enough.
Essentially, it's everything Euron does is going to be Lovecraft coded.
Yeah, and George does it again with like the Men of Lazar, the Lamb Men, Lazarine, So Jesus of Nazareth, he would be a Nazarene, and it's all shepherds and goat herders. And
Well, and Drogo and Lazarus is in, it's Miri Mazdor the Lazarene who resurrected Drogo. So yeah, it's
Well, in Lazarus himself, it's really it's the same story as Jesus. You have him in a great stone cave.
Right.
He's resurrected. He walks out of the cave of night in his grave clothes.
I never thought about that.
And Jesus is the one who does it to him. So it's cyclical.
It's just the Bible setting it. It's the foreshadowing so that Jesus' resurrection doesn't come out of nowhere. It makes sense.
Yeah. So it's basically giving you context, and it's also giving you the context is that they're in a cave of night. That's the underworld. And when you walk out of the underworld, that's a resurrection. So Jesus, perform, you don't want to call it magic, but Jesus does his thing, and Lazarus walks out of the underworld and into the light. Jesus does the same thing, and he's able to walk out of the underworld and ascend up to the heavens. So there's like a morning star, even star aspect of it. But, Lazarus being a synonym for resurrection is really just Jesus being a synonym for resurrection.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. Yeah, that makes sense. And of course, in case we didn't state the obvious, the great shepherd is Jesus, and the black goat is the Christian devil. So it's very, two of a pair there. Mm-hmm. And there, swollen and green, half devoured by crabs, the drowned god festered with the rest, seawater still dripping from his hair. Then Euron Crow's-Eye laughed again, and the priest woke screaming in the bowels of silence as piss ran down his leg. It was only a dream, a vision born of foul black wine. The king's mood was the last thing Damphair remembered clearly. As the captains lifted Euron onto their shoulders to hail him as their king, the priest had slipped off to find their brother, Victarion. Brave Sir Aeron's ran away, bravely ran away, away.
Danger reared its ugly head, he bravely turned his tail and fled. Brave, brave, brave Sir Robin.
That's you, Sean.
Okay. I didn't know if we were done, we wanted to do a little more Monty Python.
No, that's it. We're done. Yeah.
Euron's blasphemies will bring down the drowned god's wrath upon us all,
he warned. But Victarion insisted stubbornly that the god had raised their brother up, and that the god must cast him down. He will not act, the priest had realized then. It must be me. The king's mood had chosen Euron Crow's-Eye, but the king's mood was made of men, and men were weak and foolish things, too easily swayed by gold and lies. I summoned them here, to Naga's bones in the Grey King's Hall. I called them all together to choose a righteous king, but in their drunken folly they have sinned. It was for him to undo what they had done. This
is some real copium here.
It's also Moses. It's heavily Moses coded. We talk about they chose Euron essentially because he presented the most riches. And
this is like the golden calf kind of.
Golden calf. And of course we just finished talking about, another horned animal, and it was sin coded, right? And so he comes in and he said they're too easily swayed by gold and lies, and so we have the false idol here, the golden idol, the golden calf, and blah, blah, blah. They have sinned. Mm-hmm. It was for him to undo what they had done, which is, of course, what Moses did. He came in, he broke the calf, destroyed it, and, brought them their commandments. Yeah. And you'll notice in the previous section where we had the speaking lines with Euron, he uses the word commanded twice in a row.
He does. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, and this is again like the sound of silence when Euron appears with the lantern and he's shining it in his face. In restless dreams, I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And now here, him reminiscing about the King's Moot and how it didn't go his way, that it was all folly. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know, silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence. It's the whole song. This chapter goes through every stanza of the song.
We've caught George doing some pretty detailed, stuff from mostly stuff from the 60s and 70s before. A lot of it's Grateful Dead related, but not all of it. This was a really good fun. I mean, that really is the whole thing right there.
I mean, the third Dunkin' Egg, we saw a whole lot of Charlie Daniels band of Devil Went Down to Georgia. Like the whole song was there. He had, the fiddler, hi, my name is Johnny, and it might be a sin. So they had John the fiddler, and his sigil was a golden fiddle. So I'll bet a fiddle of gold against your soul that says I'm better than you. So they did the whole song there in Dunkin' Egg. He does this a lot.
Yeah. There's only one more section to the song of Sound of Silence, and we'll get to it because he'll finish the song later in the chapter.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. It's almost like Tim has done this before and studied this ahead of time. All right. Let's see here. And why is that? Okay.
But also it is like George probably also, I mean, in this case, it's warranted, but there is probably George making some call about like, oh, when the vote doesn't go your way, so now you got to call foul and be like, redo. That one didn't count. These elections weren't free and fair.
So that's your line, Sean. Go ahead.
Worms. I already read that.
The captains and the kings raised Euron up.
All right. No, he's just, it's almost repeating himself. My bad.
The captains and the kings raised Euron up, but the common folk shall tear him down,
he promised Victarion.
I shall go to Great Wick, to Harlaw, to Orkmont, to Pike itself. Every town and village shall hear my words be heard. No godless man may sit the sea stone chair.
At departing from his brother, he'd sought solace in the sea. A few of his drowned men made to follow him, but Aeron sent them off with a few sharp words. He wanted no company but God. Down where the longships had been beached along the stony strand, he found a black salt wave searching and foaming white where they broke upon a snarled rock, half buried in the sand. The water had been icy cold as he waded in, yet Aeron did not flinch from his god's caress. Waves smashed against his chest, one after another, staggering him, but he pushed on, deeper and deeper until the waters were breaking over his head. The taste of salt upon his lips was sweeter than any wine. Okay, that was massively sexual. There's a lot there.
That's just a man staggering around in the ocean waiting for a kiss from the squishers, Sean. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, giving the foaming white as he, pushed deeper and deeper and didn't flinch from his god's caress, and the waves smashed against his chest again and again.
It's called religious ecstasy. Just pipe down there. Real quick, Gustavo in the chat brought up one of my favorite mythological deities. It's Papalotl, who's the obsidian butterfly of Aztec mythology, also associated with eclipses, if I am not mistaken. The obsidian butterfly. So yeah, I think George has referenced that in a couple places. I can't remember where. I was years ago that I came across that. That's an old cut.
Yeah, well, we definitely know that he's referenced the Aztec gods before. That's a huge thing with the Florence. The Florentine Codex is where Aztec mythology was written down, and
right.
Axolotl or Zolotl, which the axolotl is named after, is a dog-headed underworld even star god, and so we have the Florence who have a fox as their sigil, kind of
similar.
And
they're Axel Florent, yeah.
Axel Florent, and he's in the underworld, with that in that prison,
Yes, right.
And it's a fox surrounded by
blue roses.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and then there's the jaguar son of Jaguar. Oh,
Akbal.
Yes. The Night's Sun, Jaguar deity associated with war, and the Night's Sun. That's a great one. And of course, all of the glass candles are just different versions of the scrying mirrors, the obsidian mirrors. So George lives in the Southwest. He's definitely coming across that stuff. All right. So, where were we? Down where the longships had been beached along the stony strand, he found a black salt wave surging and foaming white where they broke upon a snarled rock, half buried in the sand. The water had been icy cold as he waded in, yet Aeron did not... Oh, wait.
We just read this.
Yeah, I just thought you were reading it again because it was so sexual.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mingled with the distant roar of song and celebration, coming up from the beach... The guy is really squid-addled. This is what I was saying, man. He's almost as crazy as Patchface. Anyway, he heard the faint creak of longships settling on the strand. He heard the keening of the wind and now whines. He heard the pounding of the waves, the hammer of his god calling him to battle. And there and then the drowned god had come to him once more, his voice welling up from the depths of the sea. Aeron, my good and faithful servant, you must tell the Ironborn that the Crow's Eye is no true king, that the Seastone chair by rights belongs to not Victarion. Victarion had offered himself to the captains of kings, but they had spurned him. Not Asha. In his heart, Aeron had always loved Asha, best of all his brother Balin's children. The drowned god had blessed her with the warrior spirit and the wisdom of a king. But he had cursed her with a woman's body. And apologies, chat. It's just, the misogyny of the Ironborn. No woman had ever ruled the Iron Islands. She could never have made a claim. Or she should never have made a claim. She should have spoken for Victarion, adding her own strength to his. It was not too late, Aeron had decided as he shivered in the sea. If Victarion took Asha for his wife, they could yet rule together, king and queen, uncle and niece. And I added that part. In ancient days, each isle had its salt king and rock king. Let the old way return. That actually is a good system. We've talked about that in one of my Ironborn videos, the Driftwood Kings. But yeah, the Salt King, Rock King thing, it is actually a good power sharing agreement and may have originated when you had some landlubber first men and some seafaring Great Empire of the Dawn people merging to become the Ironborn.
Yeah, we made a Leng connection to it. The god empresses of Leng take two husbands, one of Yi-Tian descent and one of Lengi descent. And of those two husbands, one is the commander of the army and one is the commander of the navy. So, made us think like it was more evidence of ancient Eastern mariner meeting green people of the Greenlands. That's those intermingling are what create the Ironborn.
Certainly seems so. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, real quick, it's just interesting also that the Lengi add that whole thing of their legitimacy comes from their relationship to a woman, which is, it reminds me of the Fisher Queens and was it Huzor Amai who took over from them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Aeron Damphair had struggled back to shore, full of fierce resolve. He would bring down Euron, not with sword or axe, but with the power of his faith. Padding lightly across the stones, his hair plastered black and dank across his brow and cheeks, he stopped for a moment to push it back out of his eyes. And that was where they took him. The mutes who had been watching him, waiting for him, stalking him through strand and spray. A hand clapped down across his mouth, and something hard cracked against the base of his skull. The next time he had opened his eyes, the Damphair found himself fettered in the darkness. Then came the fever and the taste of blood in his mouth as he twisted in the chains, deep in the bowels of silence. A weaker man might have wept, but Aeron Damphair prayed. Waking, sleeping, even in his fever dreams he prayed. My God is testing me. I must be strong. I must be true.
Go ahead, Tim.
Once in the dungeon before this one, a woman brought his food in place of Euron's mute. A young thing, buxom and pretty, she dressed in the finery of a Greenland lady. in the lantern light, she was the loveliest thing Aeron had ever seen.
Woman, he said, I am a man of God. I command you, set me free.
Oh, I couldn't do that, she said. I have food for you, porridge and honey. She sat beside him on a stool and spooned it into his mouth for him.
What is this place?
He asked between spoonfuls.
My Lord Father's castle on Oakenshield. The Shield Islands. That's your...
The Shield Islands, 1,000 leagues from home.
And who are you, child?
Folly of Flowers, Lord Hewitt's natural daughter. I am to be King Euron's salt wife. You and I will be kin then. Aeron Damphair raised his eyes to hers. His scabbed lips were crusted with wet porridge.
Woman.
His chains clinked when he moved.
Run. He will hurt you. He will kill you.
She laughed. Silly, no he won't. I'm his love, his lady. He gives me gifts, so many gifts. Silks and furs and jewels. Rags and rocks, he calls them.
The crow's eye puts no value in such things.
That was one of the things that drew men to his service. Most captains kept the lion's share of their plunder, but Euron took almost nothing for himself.
He gives me any gown I want, the girl said, prattling happily. My sisters used to make me wait on them at table, but Euron made them serve the whole hall naked. Why should he do that except for love of me? She put a hand on her belly and smoothed down the fabric of her gown. I'm going to give him sons. So many sons.
He has sons.
Base-born boys and mongrels, Euron says. My sons will come before them. He has sworn, by your own drowned god.
Aeron would have wept for her. Tears of blood, he thought.
You must bear a message to my brother. Not Euron, but Victarion, Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet. Do you know the man I mean?
Yes, but I couldn't bring him any messages. He's gone.
Gone?
That was the cruelest blow of all.
Gone where?
East, with all his ships. He's to bring the Dragon Queen to Westeros. I'm to be Euron's salt wife, but he must have a rock wife too. A queen to rule all Westeros at his side. They say she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and she has dragons. The two of us will be as close as sisters.
Aeron Damphair hardly heard her. Victarion is gone, half a world away or dead. Surely the drowned god was testing him. This was a lesson for him. Put not your trust in men. Only my faith can save me now.
So real quick, we'll pause here. Let's see. Obviously, rags and rocks. We always point that out. Ragnarok. You know, Euron's gifts are poisoned. He's going to give us all Ragnarok. Clearly, he wants that. Tim, any thoughts on this last bit?
Yeah, because Aeron keeps saying that Euron is testing him. So there's also the idea that maybe Folly Flowers might be the type of woman that Aeron was into. So back before Aeron had this conversion and became a priest of a drowned god, he was a party boy. So one of the reasons that Euron may have taken Folly Flowers in is that this might have been him playing the long con when he saw her at the Shield Islands and realized, oh, this one can be useful because this is the type of woman that Aeron was into. And Aeron says, like, he finds her to be very, very attractive.
So interesting. I never thought about that. To me, it's almost like the rock star and the troubled groupie or something. You know, like she's mistreated by her family, so she's willing to go off with the bad boy. You know, kind of like it's got some vibes like that. And you do feel for her, obviously being sort of treated like a stepchild. And but yeah, this isn't. You mostly feel the dread of Aeron just being like, run, and she's like, oh, she's like, no.
This is pretty brutal too, in that it's a pretty dark Tolkien reference. So this is a Sauron thing. One of the times Sauron is kind of incognito. When he's making the rings of power, when he infiltrates the elves and helps them make the 3 rings for the elves.
That's when he's Anatar.
Anatar, which means the Lord of Gifts.
Oh,
so she's up there. She goes, he gives me gifts. Blah,
so
blah,
many
blah.
gifts. Oh, that's absolutely okay. That's great.
And so this is the same thing. He is pretending to be somebody he's not, and he's giving away all these gifts, but they're not really gifts.
They're things to bind people to him, just like
Euron.
Sauron in the rings. Yeah, that's very on the nose. Nice job, Sean.
Euron's gifts are poisoned. And of course, that's what happens when he gives you gifts, you become his. Like the ring wraiths, when he gave them rings, they became his. When he's giving out, he gives out Asha to Eric Ironmaker. He gives the Shield Islands to another captain to get his loyalty. All of these captains who formerly were people that Aeron was looking at for part of, hopefully for his coup with Victarion, and they became Euron's men. They became his when he gave them gifts.
Yeah, that's right on the money. Let's see. Go ahead, Tim.
When we were reading the Reaver, when he gives away the Shield Islands, the 4 people that he gives them to are specific obstacles in Euron's way. He gives them to a son of the head of House Volmark, because he has claims. He can trace his blood back to Aeron the Black. He gives them to Andric the Unsmiling, who was Dunstan Drum's right-hand man. He gives them to Newt the Barber, so that further isolates Victarion, because Newt was essentially Victarion's best friend. And then the 4th one he gives to, I'm blanking on his name, but it was Roderick the Reader's nephew, the one who wields the Valyrian sword Nightfall.
Harris Harlaw.
Harris Harlaw, thank you. Harris Harlaw is Roderick the Reader's heir because he has no sons of his own. So each one of the Shield Islands that they can't hold is specifically given to someone that stands in Euron's way, further isolating all of his opponents. He isolates Victarion, he isolates Roderick the Reader, and he isolates the Drum.
Well, another thing that we should bring up here is that after the mask falls and he can no longer pretend to be Anatar, Sauron tortures Celebrimbor to death. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And he's even saying, be my priest to Aeron, but he's sort of rejecting him too. So yeah. So this thing I want to point out is like, yeah, not just the symbolism, but the plot action, the corrupting through the gifts. I mean, the chains, the unseen chains that come along with the gifts, like that's just really good. So even though Euron isn't full on Sauron, George is intelligently borrowing from the character. So that's pretty cool. Just like Maegor isn't really the Antichrist, but it works as an inspiration to make an interesting story of a demonic king. So there you go.
Well, and what happened to Sauron Salt Tongue?
I forget. Did Aegon the Conqueror kill him? You looking it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. So this, one of the big things that I always try to push is that the Iron Islands are just crappy Numenor. They weren't, Numenor was completely pushed below the waves, and destroyed completely. In their navy was completely destroyed. Whereas with the Ironborn, they still have these islands where it used to be either a giant landmass or connected to Westeros. And there's just so much Numenor. And of course, Sauron was imprisoned in Numenor and was the reason that he influenced them to attack.
Right, he led the downfall from the inside that way. So what happened to Sauron Salt Tongue then?
So Sauron declared the Ironborn to have originated in the drowned god's watery halls, made in the god's image, emerging from beneath the seas with dominion over all the waters on earth. So he was a priest of the drowned god. And I think the reason for that is what Sauron introduced to Numenor was the worship of Morgoth. So he was essentially a priest in Numenor.
That tracks. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah. There was also another drown. So earlier, when Aeron is walking out into a sea, there's another drowned priest. I was blanking on his name, who basically filled his pockets with rocks. He was the one who claimed to be
Lodos.
Lodos. Lodos claimed to be the son of the drowned god and said that I must seek refuge with my father and hear his word. And he like walked out into the sea and never came back. And that it seemed like what Aeron was doing up until the point that someone hit him in the back of the head and drug him into the dungeon. Is he was pulling a Lodos, looking to speak directly with the drowned god, and it seemed like in his vision he did speak with the drowned god who was trying to tell him something, but to the back of the head.
Well, and the word root that I recognize from that, it's Spanish by way of Latin, is that lodos, it has to do with mud. So him going into the water, with rocks, it just sounds like he turned into mud.
So go ahead, Tim, with that night.
That night, when the tide came rushing back into the prison cell, he prayed that it might rise all night, enough to end his torment. I have been your true and leal servant, he prayed, twisting in his chains. Now snatch me from my brother's hand and take me down beneath the waves to be seated at your side. But no deliverance came, only the mutes to undo his chains and drag him roughly up a long stone stair to where the silence floated on a cold black sea. And a few days later, as her hull shuddered in the grip of some storm, the crow's eye came below again, lantern in hand. This time, his other hand held a dagger. Still praying, priest. Your God has forsaken you.
You're wrong.
It was me who taught you how to pray, little brother. Have you forgotten? I would visit your bedchamber at night when I had too much to drink. You shared a room with Euron high up in the sea tower. I could hear you praying from outside the door. I always wondered, were you praying that I would choose you, or that I would pass you by? Euron pressed the knife to Aeron's throat. Pray to me. Beg me to end your torment, and I will.
Not even you would dare. I am your brother. No man is more accursed than the kinslayer.
And yet I wear a crown and you rot in chains. How is it that your drowned god allows that when I have killed 3 brothers?
3?
Well, if you count half-brothers. Do you remember little Robin? Wretched creature. Do you remember that big head of his? How soft it was. All he could do was mule and shit. He was my second. Harlan was my first. All I had to do was pinch his nose shut. The grayscale had turned his mouth to stone, so he could not cry out, but his eyes grew frantic as he died. They begged me. When the life went out of them, I went out and pissed into the sea, waiting for the god to strike me down. None did. Oh, and Balin was the third, but you knew that. I could not do the deed myself, but it was my hand that pushed him off the bridge. The crow's eye pressed the dagger in a little deeper, and Aeron felt blood trickling down his neck. If your drowned god did not smite me for killing 3 brothers, why should he bestir himself for the 4th? Because you are his priest? He stepped back and sheathed his dagger. No, I'll not kill you tonight. A holy man with holy blood? I may have need of that blood later. For now, you are condemned to live.
A holy man with holy blood, Aeron thought when his brother had climbed back onto the deck. He mocks me and he mocks the god. Kinslayer, blasphemer, demon in human skin. That night he prayed for his brother's death. It was in the second dungeon that the other holy men began to appear to share his torments. 3 wore the robes of septons of the Green Lands, and one the red raiment of a priest of R'hllor. The last was hardly recognizable as a man. Both his hands had been burned down to the bone, and his face was a charred and blackened horror where two blind eyes moved sightlessly above the cracked cheeks dripping pus. He was dead within hours of being shackled to the wall, but the mutes left his body there to ripen for 3 days afterward.
Is that some Jesus Christ stuff there, since that's a R'hllorist priest?
Yeah, to burn a R'hllorist priest is to mock him.
It's a little bit of a shout out to Quentin Martell.
Well, I mean, he's dead for 3 days here. They don't specify that he resurrects, but they're very specific about the 3 days dead. So that's, Jesus and Mithras and every other god with a morning star cycle.
Yep. Last were two warlocks of the east, with flesh as white as mushrooms, and lips the purplish blue of a bad bruise, all so gaunt and starved that only skin and bones remained. One had lost his legs. The mutes hung him from a rafter. "Pree!" he cried as he swung back and forth. "Pree! Pree!" Probably didn't sound like that, but I just like to say
I think he did. I think it sounded perfect the way he did it. He makes him sound like a Pokemon yelling out his own name as he does.
I think it's probably more, pray, pray, pray. It's probably more like
that. Probably is closer. Perhaps that was the name of the demon he was working. Of course, this is Pyat Pri.
Yeah, so when you yell it, I think it's meant to sound like pray.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. Perhaps that was the name of the demon that he worships. The drowned. Is that a Lovecraftian reference, Tim? Is there a pre anything or pray or?
Not that I'm familiar with. Nah, I think this is just Pyat Pri, and this is just referencing that. This is one of those things that like George forgot about and had to insert later on into like some other text. It's only on the World of Ice and Fire app that it is said that Euron had abducted Pyat Pri and the other warlocks who had left with Karth. So you need that like extended info to get that, because he forgot to put it in any main series.
I thought there was a reference to it in this chapter, but I guess I'm wrong. Let's see. Perhaps that was the name of the demon he worships. The drowned god protects me, the priest told himself. He is stronger than the false gods these other worship, stronger than their black sorceries. The drowned god will set me free. In his saner moments, Aeron questioned why the Crow's Eye was collecting priests, but he did not think he would like the answer. Victarion was gone, and with him, hope. Aeron's drowned men likely thought the Damphair was hiding on Old Wick, or Great Wick, or Pike, and wondered when he would emerge to speak against this godless king. Yeah, because he sent them all away, so he had no... The nice Jon Snow and Aeron Damphair, sending away their friends when they're the most vulnerable. Good idea.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Jon Snow, because he's the most transparent Aragorn figure in this. And he says Victarion was gone, and with him hope. And he wants Victarion to be king. Aragorn's actual name, before he's told that his name is Aragorn and he's the heir to the throne of Gondor and Arnor, he is raised in Rivendell, and he's called Astel, which in Elven means hope.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's, it's the same word root. It's why they call, Kal-El, one of the word roots. El obviously means God, and that's something that they're doing with Superman. But El, the other word root, is hope, and that's what they say, the House of El. That's what he says his S means on his chest, means hope. So same word root. So when he says Victarion, who he wants to be king, is gone, and with him hope, it's more like this is crappy Numenor again.
Victarion is a pretty crappy version of Aragorn. Let's see here. Okay. Uragon haunted his fever dreams. You're dead, Uri, Aeron thought. Sleep now, child, and trouble me no more. Soon I shall come to join you. Whenever Aeron prayed, the legless warlock made queer noises, and his companion babbled wildly in his queer eastern tongue, though whether they were cursing or pleading, the priest could not say. The Septons made soft noises from time to time as well, but not in words that he could understand. Aeron suspected that their tongues had been cut out. Tim, go ahead and please show us all your crown as well.
The crownless again shall be king.
So,
but that's another good one. Is that Aragorn, the hands of the healer, or the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so we have Victarion who heals his hand with the fire magic.
Oh no, Aragorn. Uragon, Uragon had grayscale. But let's look at Tim's crown.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep. So, and I also got these. So these are real shark teeth, but don't worry, they're fossilized shark teeth. So no sharks were harmed in the making of this crown.
Oh my God, sharks drop so many teeth on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
They go through thousands of teeth, sharks do.
But these are fossilized teeth from Otodus obliquus, which lived, I'm just reading the card on the back of this, lived during the Paleocene epoch 50 to 60 million years ago. So it was a large predatory shark and one of the ancestors to Megalodon. But I got, along with those fossils, I got my two big ones right here.
Nice. Well, we do appreciate your dedication to the bit. That's a shark bite joke. The bit.
Yep. We go baby shark.
Oh yeah, and I told you. So one of the presents I got my nephew for Christmas was I had talked about this before. I made a donation to the World Wildlife Fund and symbolically adopted him a shark. So my nephew's about to turn 2, and he's been learning words. He's been learning like his colors and counting and animal names. And apparently his favorite animal at the moment is sharks. And I'm like, well, that worked out great for me because he owns one now. And that's when I gave him their card, letting them know that.
Nice. He's going to think that's really cool as he gets older too, and understands more what that means. That's cool.
Yep.
So go pick it up with When Euron Came Again. Don't.
When Euron came again, his hair was swept straight back from his brow, and his lips
you got something in your hair. Is that hair gel? Is that?
Yeah, my hair's slicked back with product.
No, what movie is that? Was Cameron Diaz showing? Something about Mary. Thank you. That's what that's. Yeah.
Is that hair gel?
Yeah, it works really well.
Shh,
No,
Sean.
terrible.
So when his hair was swept straight back from his brow, and his lips were so blue they were almost black, he had put aside his driftwood crown. In its place, he wore an iron crown whose points were made from the teeth of sharks.
That which is dead cannot die,
said Aeron fiercely.
for he who has tasted death once need never fear again. He was drowned, but he came forth stronger than before, with steel and fire.
And of course, this is that is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die. So, right. If we ever needed any further confirmation that the drowned god is Cthulhu, here is Aeron essentially saying the chant.
The Necro-Uragon.
Will you do the same, brother? Euron asked. I think not. I think if I drown you, you'll stay drowned. All gods are lies, but yours is laughable. A pale white thing in the likeness of a man, his limbs broken and swollen and his hair flipping in the water while fish nibble at his face. What fool would worship that?
He's your god as well. And when you die, he will judge you harshly, Crow's Eye. You will spend eternity as a sea slug, crawling on your belly eating shit. If you do not fear to kill your own blood, slit my throat and be done with me. I'm weary of your mad boastings.
Kill my own little brother? Blood of my blood? Born of the loins of Quelling Greyjoy? And who would share my triumphs? Victory is sweeter with a loved one by your side.
Your victories are hollow. You cannot hold the shields.
Why would I want to hold them? His brother's smiling eye glittered in the lantern light, blue and bold and full of malice. The shields have served my purpose. I took them with one hand and gave them away with the other. A great king is open-handed, brother. It is up to the new lords to hold them now. The glory of winning those rocks will be mine forever. When they are lost, the defeat will belong to the 4 fools who so eagerly accepted my gifts. He moved closer. Our longships are raiding up the Mander and all along the coast, even to the Arbor and the Red Wine Straits. The old way, brother.
Release me.
Aeron Damphair commanded in his sternest voice.
Or risk the wrath of God.
Euron produced a carved stone bottle and a wine cup. You have a thirsty look about you, he said as he poured. You need a drink, a taste of evening shade.
No. No, I said.
And I said yes. Euron pulled his head back by the hair and forced the vile liquor into his mouth again. Though Aeron clamped his mouth shut, twisting his head from side to side, he fought as best he could. But in the end, he had to choke or swallow.
Tim, Sean, I just realized that you are doing a modified Charlton Heston Moses for Damphair. That just sank in. That's perfect.
When I read the chapter, I thought of him as Moses the whole time. And once again, there he's talking about God and commanded in his sternest voice. He's doing Moses stuff again.
Well, it really came through when you said that line.
Well, and think about it. Moses parted the Red Sea.
Yeah, no, he's clearly under the influence of the deep ones. This makes sense.
Yeah, Moses
was a bit
was
squid-addled. And thank you, Loch Long Strider. Speaking of walking on water.
That's the Scottish difference of it. Loch Long Strider.
The dreams were even worse the second time. He saw the longships of the Ironborn adrift and burning on a boiling blood-red sea. He saw his brother on the Iron Throne again, but Euron was no longer human. He seemed more squid than man, a monster fathered by a kraken of the deep, his face a mass of writhing tentacles. Beside him stood a shadow in woman's form, long and tall and terrible, her hands alive with pale white fire. Dwarves capered for their amusement, male and female, naked and misshapen, locked in carnal embrace, biting and tearing at each other as Euron and his mate laughed and laughed and laughed. Aeron dreamed of drowning, too, not of the bliss that would surely follow down in the drowned god's watery halls, but of the terror that even the faithful feel as the water fills their mouth and nose and lungs, and they cannot draw a breath. 3 times the Damphair woke, and 3 times it proved no true waking, but only another chapter in a dream. So he's in Inception here. The worst sequel to Inception ever. But at last, there came a day when the door of the dungeon swung open and a mute came splashing through with no food in his hands. Instead, he had a ring of power, of keys, a ring of keys in one hand and a lantern in the other. The light was too bright to look upon, and Aeron was afraid of what it meant. Bright and terrible. Something had changed. Something has happened.
Bring them,
said a half-familiar voice from the hapless gloom.
Be quick about it. You know how he gets.
Oh, I do.
Oh, that's you. Sorry.
Oh, I do. I've known since I was a boy.
Keep going, Sean.
Okay. One Septon made a frightened noise as the mute undid his chains, a half-choked sound that might have been some attempt at speech. The legless warlock stared down at the black water, his lips moving silently in prayer. When the mute came for Aeron, he tried to struggle, but the strength had gone from his limbs, and one blow was all it took to quiet him. His wrist was unshackled, then the other. Free, he told himself. I'm free. Sounds like pre.
Yeah. And somebody else in the chat, obviously, Pirate Pre is a priest, so.
And a pirate.
Pirate priest. There you go. There it is.
But he's legless here and shackled to the wall. It sounds like Bran jacked into the werewood net.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
But when he drank the Shade of the Evening, whereas Bran is drinking the werewood paste. But it's
for sure. It does seem like an unfortunate parallel.
Yeah. When he tried to take a step, his weakened legs folded under him. Not one of the prisoners was fit enough to walk. In the end, the mutes had to summon more of their kind. 2 of them grasped Aeron by the arms and dragged him up a spiral stair. His feet banged off the steps as they ascended, sending stabbing pains up his leg. He bit his lips to keep from crying out. The priest could hear the warlocks just behind him. The septons brought up the rear, sobbing and gasping. With every turn of the stair, the steps grew brighter, until finally a window appeared in the left-hand wall. It was only a slit in the stone, a bare hand's breadth across, but that was wide enough to admit a shaft of sunlight. So golden, the Damphair thought. So beautiful. When they pulled up the steps through the light, he felt its warmth upon his face and tears rolled down his cheek. The sea. I can smell the sea. The drowned god has not abandoned me. The sea will make me whole again. That which is dead can never die, but rises again, harder and stronger.
Take me to the water.
Yeah, I like this. So none of the prisoners are fit to walk. It makes them all just sound like a bunch of green seers, piloting the werewood net, which can be analogized as a ship on the green sea.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, the ship thing, exactly.
Take me to the water,
he commanded, as if he were still back on the Iron Islands, surrounded by his drowned men. But the mutes were his brother's creatures, and they paid him no heed. They dragged him up more steps, down a torchlit gallery, and into a black stone hall where a dozen bodies were hanging from the rafters, turning and swaying. A dozen of Euron's captains were gathered in the hall, drinking wine beneath the corpses. Left-hand Lucas Codd sat in the place of honor, wearing a heavy silken tapestry as a cloak. Beside him was the Red Oarsman, and further down, pinch-faced John Meyer, Stonehand, and Rogan Saltbeard.
Okay, hang on a second. I've got something for you. Take me to the river by the talking heads. I don't know why I love her like I do. All the changes you put me through. Take my money, my cigarettes. I haven't seen the worst of it yet. I want to know, can you tell me, am I in love to stay? Take me to the river, drop me in the water. Take me in the river, dip me in the water, washing me down, washing me down. I don't know why you treat me so bad. Think of all the things that we could have had. Love is a notion that I can't forget. My sweet 16 I would never regret. So this is like Falia and Aeron are the before and after of this song. And that's it's hug me, squeeze me. That's okay. There we go. So not quite as direct a hit as the one that Tim shared, Hello Darkness. But he did say take me to the water, so I thought of it.
Well, and the implication, which is always a huge implication in any chapter with Ironborn people, is baptism. So their whole religious rite that they do over and over again, it's not only baptism, which is something that you have to do in the Christian tradition, it's also doing the death and resurrection thing of Jesus, rising again harder and stronger. So doing it, combining those two things, doing it from a river, which is where all baptisms used to take place. They didn't used to just put water on your head like they do now in the Catholic Church. They used to actually take you out to a physical river and dunk you beneath the water. So, and that's a tradition that predates Christianity, actually. But then we have left hand Lucas Codd, which anytime you see left hand, you should be thinking sinister, you should be thinking Satan. And so we have kind of an inverted Jesus thing here where he has 12 dead bodies and 12 people sitting in his hall and kind of a Last Supper.
Oh,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, all of these names are symbolic, but left hand Lucas Codd.
So there's a dozen bodies and a dozen captains, kind of like twins, the Night's Watch and the others. And Euron, it implies Euron as a corpse leader, which makes sense. So, yeah.
Well, and you always see Jesus symbolized as the fish, right? You see the bumper sticker with the Jesus as the fish, JNRJ with the fish on side of it. So that's some symbolism that's always been attached to Jesus. And so left hand Lucas Cod, him being like an inverse Jesus here, leading the Last Supper.
And doesn't Jesus talk about you'll sit at my left hand in heaven or something like that, or I'm sitting at the right hand of the throne of God? Isn't there some?
Yeah, he's a morning star figure, so he's at the right hand of God always.
Okay,
so
right.
And that's where Michael is, Michael the archangel, and Michael is there because he replaced Lucifer, who was the right hand of God. He was the morning star, and then he fell and became the even star and the left hand of God.
So basically, this is like a weird Last Supper here.
Right. So Lucas Cod, he has the fish symbolism straight from Jesus. He's got 12 companions sitting here for dinner, and then he's got 12 dead versions of them.
Luke is a disciple too.
Right. Well, it's also just it's funny. I had to comment on this some just because George Lucas is a big he's a big fan of the classics. One of the big things that he was a fan of and he based Star Wars heavily on was Dune. So Star Wars is basically a fanfic where Dune is a lot more hopeful. And
Right.
and he named the main character after himself. His name is George Lucas, and he named his main character Luke S. So, and of course, you have kind of a Jesus figure. Luke Skywalker is somewhat of a Jesus figure. There's a lot going on there. Darth Vader is somewhat of a Satan analog.
Luke gets his hand cut off, right? Yeah, no. So there's also a John here too. There's a Luke and a John. So there's two disciples.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. I need to run to the restroom. Can you guys take over here?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll be right back.
Okay, so I think I had Lucas Cod already. I think that was the guy speaking earlier.
Yeah, so it's who are these dead Aeron commanded?
Oh, sorry, that's me then.
Yeah.
Who are these dead?
Aeron commanded. His tongue was so thick the words came out in a rusty whisper, faint as a mouse breaking wind.
The lord that held this castle with his kin. The voice belonged to Torwald Browntooth, one of his brother's captains, a creature near as vile as the crow's eye himself. Pigs!
Oh, sorry.
Pigs,
You go ahead.
said another vile creature, the one they called the Red Oarsman. This was their isle, a rock just off the arbor. They dared oink threats at us. Red wine, oink. Hightower, oink. Tyrell, oink, oink, oink. So we sent them squealing down to hell.
The arbor. Not since the drowned god had blessed him with a second life had Aeron Damphair ventured so far from the Iron Islands. This is not my place. I do not belong here. I should be with my drowned men, preaching against the crow's eye.
Have your gods been good to you in the dark?
Asked left-hand Lucas Cod. One of the warlocks snarled some answer in his ugly eastern tongue.
I curse you all.
Aeron said.
Your curses have no power here, priest.
Right there. Gandalf, so you can imagine like the damp hair as like Gandalf the Grey. You have no power here.
Yeah.
Aeron Damphair.
It's just super low budget Numenor. Hey, kind of like Rings of Power. Oh, that's super high budget, but still crappy, actually.
God, I was... Someday I will do a video about how upset that entire series made me and all the reasons why. And it will be just the most... I'm always so positive in my videos. I like to focus on the things that authors and stuff are doing right.
Same.
But one day I will do that property and it will be goddamn blistering. It will be a roast I haven't done since I used to do stand-up. But anyway.
I'll be here for it, Sean. I'll be here for it. I tried to like that thing too, man, but it upsets me
really
viscerally. Yeah.
And the acting was so good, and the sets were so good, and it was just so many things were so high effort from such fantastic professionals, and then they let that happen.
I think that's a good summation. Yeah. And kind of like the latter seasons of Game of Thrones, when you have actors that are that good, there are these moments when the thing comes together and you buy into it. And then because the writing isn't good and the sense of the story falls apart, it just pulls you right back out again. It's very frustrating. Yeah. Anyway, chat can have fun with that for a second. Go ahead. You're already doing left-hand Lucas Cod, so.
Your curses have no power here, priest,
Said left-hand Lucas Cod.
The crow's eye has fed your drowned god well, and he has grown fat with sacrifice. Words are wind, but blood is power. We've given thousands to the sea, and he has given us victories.
Count yourself blessed, Damphair, said Stonehand. We are going back to the sea. The red wine fleet creeps towards us. The winds have been against them rounding Dorne, but they're finally near enough to have emboldened the old women in Old Town. So now Leighton Hightower's sons move down the Whispering Sound in hopes of catching us in the rear.
You know what it's like to be caught in the rear, don't you? Said the Red Oarsman, laughing. Okay, so earlier this guy had been making the whole pig thing, and now he just made allusions to the sexual assault. I'm starting to wonder if George is going for a whole deliverance thing here with the Red Oarsman.
Yeah, maybe.
I bet you could squeal like a pig.
Take them to the ships, Torwald Browntooth commanded.
Can we with his name? That's just too much.
What is it?
Torwald, so it means Thor wood. Like Wald is from the old, like Woden and Wodenaz. So it's the wood of Thor. And Thor's sacred tree is the oak. So this is like brown-tooth oak, right? It's Brown Bennis, essentially. And they talked about how Brown Bennis had, brown teeth, except when he was, chewing the sour leaf, it made it red.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was, it's pretty gross, but yeah, they talked about how Torwald Brown too. Yeah, he's gross.
That actually is just real quick shout out to the chat. Yeah, if you want to talk about things like the Stranger Things finale, you absolutely can start a thread or even a little room, ask one of the mods and start a little room for whatever's going on. That's the type of thing we do in Discord. Anything that, people are interested in our community can become a little channel or thread or whatever it is. Like, it's absolutely there for people to freely associate and make, have fun talking to each other. The whole point is like it's a little smaller slice of the internet, so you get a lot less of the toxicity and algorithm sorting and bot. There's no bots in my Discord, I don't think. So yeah.
They did so much reference all through that series, and especially in the final season. Everything from, Jesus and Beowulf, a ton of that. We talked about Alice in Wonderland earlier. Indiana Jones, Swamp Thing, like everything. They've done so well with that series doing reference, and it's all, of course, a big game of D&D. So
yeah, and it's already happened. They've already got a media and TV section where they're talking Stranger Things already. So as soon as this stream is over, I promise I will send out a fresh Discord invite. They only last a week. I will post it on Patreon, and I will post it on the YouTube Squisher feed. So if you want to support the program by joining Patreon, which you can even do for free, or by joining the YouTube channel member Squisher, then you will get a link to the Discord, and you can come hang out and have fun. And I strongly encourage that. On New Year's Day, guys, there's your throw up dog. Literally 2 minutes before Sean gets on today, he's like, my dog just threw up.
She did. She likes to be dramatic before I go. She's like, you're going to leave for a serious amount of time. I'm going to throw up about it. She was fine. Anyway, she was scratching at the door a bunch. And so she was just
going to have to blur your screen with all that making out.
Yeah. She was going to keep doing this until I let her lick my face. It calms her down, and then I'm gonna let her back outside here in a second. She'll be a little bit more calm for the rest of the
That's
story.
cool. Yeah, definitely do your thing. Keep the pets
All
happy.
right.
We support that here. So, what was I saying? What was I saying, Tim?
You were talking about something about the Discord.
Oh, yeah. Basically, if you join either one, I'll put a fresh link, and you can get in there and have fun with it. Oh, on New Year's Day, that's what it was. On New Year's Day, I logged into Discord, and what do I see but like 20 people doing a Hedge Night reread and having fun together, and it warmed my heart because I was like, oh, I've helped bring these people together, and look, here they are having fun, making friends on New Year's Day. Like, this is what everyone would like to be doing, is hanging out in this Discord and reading the chapter together, and everyone was being so nice and supportive and doing voices and stuff, and like, it was just super cool. So yeah, I'll update the link for everyone. If you joined YouTube channel member Squisher with the join button or the Patreon, you'll get a link to that.
Yeah.
Getting back to the chapter, we've got Torvald, Browntooth, Thor. It's kind of just like Tree Face, Browntooth. You got Dywin of the Wooden Teeth. It's a recurring theme. And so Aeron Damphair returned to the Salt Sea. A dozen longships were drawn up at the wharf below the castle, and twice as many beached along the strand. Familiar banners streamed from their masts, the Greyjoy Kraken, the Bloody Moon of Winch, my personal favorite, the War Horn of the Good Brothers. Oh, that's right. Oh, I like that one too. But from their sterns flew a flag the priest had never seen before, a red eye with a black pupil, beneath an iron crown supported by two crows. Let's put Tim back up on solo here. Hang on. Stay there, Tim. Stay. Oh, it's creepy.
A little bit lower, Tim.
Put your face lower. There. That's just
go.
Disturbing. Thank you for doing that for all of us. I would not want... Just think about if someone really looked like that. Like, it's not even... Tim, you mentioned heterochromia. And let me go back. Sorry, you're very on the spot there. We mentioned heterochromia, but it could be that his eye is just injured. It could be that, like, it was injured and so it's like black with like blood or something like that. You're muted.
Yeah, you're right. He could have had just regular blue eyes as a kid, and one was injured, and now it's just forever bloody. But it seems like he's able to see from it, so I like the idea that he has heterochromia.
Yeah, well, hard to say. So beyond them, a host of merchant ships floated on a tranquil turquoise sea. Cogs, carracks, fishing boats, even a great cog, swollen sow of a ship as big as the Leviathan. Let's see, prizes of war, the Damphair knew. I guess Leviathan is a different ship. But of course, Sea Dragon, was a weird boat reference. Euron Crow's Eye stood upon the deck of Silence, clad in a suit of black scale armor like nothing Aeron had ever seen before. Dark as smoke it was, but Euron wore it as easily if it was the thinnest silk. The scales were edged in red gold. I always forget that part. But Euron wore it as easily as if it was the thinnest silk. Because the Valyrian steel scale would be crazy looking on its own. But like every scale edged in red gold, those really would look like dragon scales. That would be sick. Aerion Brightflame would approve. Let's see. And it gleamed and shimmered when they moved. Patterns could be seen within the metal. Whorls and glyphs and arcane symbols folded into the steel. Valyrian steel, the Damphair knew. His armor is Valyrian steel. In all the Seven Kingdoms, no man owned a suit of Valyrian steel. Such things had been known 400 years ago in the days before the Doom, but even then they would have cost a kingdom. So like I always say, the Targaryens didn't even have these. Or dragon binders, which makes Euron more of a Valyrian cosplay than a Targaryen cosplay, which I find interesting.
Well, and it's even better. He's wearing Valyrian steel scales, so it's like he's becoming a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.
The scales also, though, imply him as a deep one, as a squisher.
Yeah.
And he does have Cthulhu face, so it works well as a dual reference, absolutely.
Oh my God, Tim.
Let's see. Euron did not lie. He has been to Valyria. No wonder he was mad. Your Grace, said Torwald Browntooth, I have the priests. What do you want done with them?
Bind them to the prows, Euron commanded. My brother on the silence. Take one for yourself. Let them dice for the others, one to a ship. Let them feel the spray, the kiss of the drowned god, wet and salty. This time, the mutes did not drag him below. Instead, they lashed him to the prow of the silence, beside her figurehead, a naked maiden, slim and strong, with outstretched arms and wind-blown hair, but no mouth below her nose. They bound Aeron Damphair tight with strips of leather that would shrink when wet, clad only in his beard and breech clout. The crow's eye spoke a command. A black sail was raised, lines were cast off, and the silence backed away from shore to the slow beat of the oarmaster's drum, her oars rising and dipping and rising again, churning the water. Above them, the castle was burning, flames licking from the open windows. When they were well out to sea, Euron returned to him. Brother, you look forlorn. I have a gift for you. He beckoned, and two of his bastard sons dragged the woman forward and bound her to the prow on the other side of the figurehead. Naked as the mouthless maiden, her smooth belly just beginning to swell with the child she was carrying, her cheeks red with tears, she did not struggle as the boys tightened her bonds. Her hair hung down in front of her face, but Aeron knew her all the same.
Folly of flowers,
He called.
have courage, girl. All this will be over soon, and we will feast together in the drowned god's watery halls.
The girl raised up her head, but made no answer. She has no tongue to answer with, the Damphair knew. He licked his lips and tasted salt.
All right. Well, that was a rousing, stirring finish there. Yet another horror, just to wrap up this chapter. She's damn fair, Locke Longstrider says. That's true. They are twin sacrifices, obviously, and Falia's mimicking the Moon Maiden on the prow, the Silenced Maiden. Yeah, and Aeron is too. There's all this stuff about Euron R-wording him,
Yeah.
That's pretty dark stuff. Yeah. Oh, they're saying Stranger Things has something about a black stone from another planet that possesses people. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a trope. It's not. I wasn't really going out on a limb when I said there's a black meteor in Stygia that's like possessing people, and it's a demon god. It's very in the pocket.
Dave, you have to bleed into it to activate it.
Oh, so it's like a bloodstone, like how Jesus' blood dripped on the Chalcedony and turned it into bloodstone.
It's a trope going all the way back to Howard. So when I did the Lovecraft Holiday Festival, we did the Black Stone by Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan. And the Black Stone is a sacrificial altar where they sacrifice two people. They make a sacrifice of a baby and of a fair maiden. And our protagonist in that story, he basically has a vision where he sort of travels back in time and he sees one of these processions, one of these sacrifices hundreds of years ago when it was made. And I brought up this is exactly like Bran looking through the eyes of a weirwood and seeing the sacrifice that was made all those years ago, the white-haired woman who slashes the throat of a bound man. It's the same thing. So, yeah, it's a trope that's been around for a long, long time.
And what's interesting is, of course, the moon in Ice and Fire is both the black stone altar and the sacrificed woman, because the moon is a goddess, but when the moon is sacrificed, we get the oily black stones, and that is more proof that the Kraken throne is not originally a chair, but rather a Deep One's sacrificial altar. And so here on the Silence, we see the Black Iron Maiden, who is symbolic of the moon, but also the sacrificed woman, Nissa, kind of at the same time. And then Folia Flowers is like the woman on the altar with the the maiden itself, the Iron Maiden being the altar. So yeah, that's pretty tight symbolism there. And then, of course, the question. Thank you, Gustavo, for asking us so we didn't forget the obvious question. Who is Hands of White Fire Lady? It's been 14 years we've been debating this. You know, I just realized the other day that I have been waiting for Winds of Winter for fully a third of my life. And that percentage might even be higher for people who are younger than me, which is...
Let's not do any more math. The math hurts.
Math, that does hurt, yeah.
For a lot of reasons. I think the Hands of White Fire Lady is the Miri Mazdur spirit piloted Viserion. I think it's the female dragon. She's a white dragon. You know, she's got this, you know, undead fire thing going on. I think her fire will be blue, but I think the Hands of White Fire thing, more symbolic anyway.
This is something that all the Bard proposed a long time ago, that this was Viserion's dragon spirit. I think that would be cool. That would be like another step forward in us getting to see how George thinks about the dragons and the spirits and the dragons and how sentient are they. So that we haven't seen a dragon manifest in a dream quite like that. I guess the closest thing we've seen is Balerion potentially in Dany's dragon dream. Yeah, I guess that is kind of similar. I mean, no, because it's a black dragon in the dream. That's more straightforward. So this would be a dragon spirit appearing as a person, or at least a shadow person. That would be different. But pretty crazy. I do like that theory. What's your opinion on that, Tim? And
yeah, because I used to think that it was Cersei, but then it's like the more time goes by, it's like there's really no advantage for Euron to marry Cersei like he did in the show. Then I was starting to think maybe it's the Mad Maid, but the Mad Maid seems like too late into a story to be introducing a character like that to be of that much importance.
Can I pause you right there? I do think that George could pull that off. If you think about Fagon coming out of nowhere, it's you know, some of the things he's done with the prologue characters, he can build up somebody really quickly. And I think the thing that would make that make sense is if Leighton and Melora are already working with Euron, like they're already like have been corrupted by him through the glass candle and stuff, and they're just revealed as his like accomplices. But I do kind of agree, like Melora Hightower, it's like I don't know if she rates high enough.
Yeah. But the more time passes, especially as we've been talking about this whole stuffing Victarion into a dragon to become like Euron's familiar. And we've talked about like how George always takes ideas where he writes them, he'll write them small and then make them big, or he'll make them big and write them small. He actually has writ this idea small with Varamir Sixskins. When Varamir takes over Orell's eagle, he mentions that Orell was still in there and he could hear him crying as Varamir ripped it away from him. So if Victarion gets stuffed into Viserion, but there's already a spirit inhabiting that, like Miri Mazdur, like Sean had said. And George has said, too, along with seeing further north, we're supposed to learn more about the dragon bond of Winds of Winter. What happens when a new soul comes into a dragon and tries to evict the old one? That could be signs of this happening. Like, what happens to that old spirit that Dany gave to hatch the dragon if Euron forces Vic in there when Vic blows.
A couple people have asked me that in the comments, like, is it just a spirit party inside the dragon or what's going on? We don't know, you know, but there's a couple different ways it could work, basically.
Or do they like intermingle and become like, do the spirits forge and now it's a mix of Victarion and this Miri Mazdur spirit? Or
yeah, and I don't necessarily think those spirits are in control of the dragon. I think they're just in there, more like Hodor cowering in the corner. I don't think the Victarion's going to control the dragon, for example. He's just going to be in there. But go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I think he'll be just as possessed. That would really be a way to tie in the whole like Lovecraftian, you know, I search for ultimate power and sacrifice to these other evil gods tried to become a god and ended up being possessed by one. And technically, I guess I was a god, but it wasn't the way I wanted it to be. Anyway.
Right. If Victarion could just turn into a dragon and be in charge, that would kind of be like an upgrade, really. It's not going to be that. It's going to be horrible. He's going to be a prisoner. So,
but,
and then basically the idea is that Euron then, taking control of the dragon against Victarion's will, with Victarion in the dragon. This is just another R-wording of a brother, kind of, for Euron. It's a similar type thing.
And so I don't necessarily buy the Melora Hightower, but I'm not really against it either. In the way that I feel like it kind of makes sense is from the character building that he's gone into that backstory. We've talked a little bit about
right,
King
we
Arthur.
haven't had enough Hightowers in the story for how big a house they are.
Right, and the background here is that there are a bunch of different iterations of Arthurian mythology. It was written, there is no such thing as canon. A bunch of different people wrote in it over a tradition that was over 1,000 years long. So the idea is the most common and popular iteration of it was written by a knight prisoner named Sir Thomas Malory during the War of the Roses. And he was trapped up in a tower writing a book. And Melora, as in like the female version of Mallory, Thomas Malory, is trapped up in a high tower.
With the Book of Spells.
Her father. And yeah. So the idea here is if we're making it an Arthurian analogy here, you have a white spirit up in a tower pretty constantly. Guinevere is that comes from it's the same name as Jennifer, which is a Welsh origin Guinevere, and it's pronounced in a preposterous way that I can't even begin to try.
Yeah,
but the idea is like it means like pale woman or pale spirit or whatever, and the idea is she originally had more like fae, banshee type associations.
Okay.
And she keeps getting captured and put in the top of towers. So if you're talking about like a white spirit in a tower, this, Hands of White Fire Lady being a high tower, there's a certain amount of sense there in the way that George has, just with a couple words really created kind of a backdrop for this character who we have know next to nothing about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it kind of does make sense that there would be some Hightower payoff. I mean, being Euron's ally is not, it's a medium level of importance, but it's not like, oh, this changes everything. The Hightowers are definitely, and the Danes, like those two houses are both like guns on the mantle that really haven't fired yet. So,
yeah, I think it's just a problem of the 14-year gap. It's like, yeah, Chekhov's gun needs to be fired, but it's like with this much of a gap, it feels so late in the game. Even though we got to remind ourselves, in world though, only this started in 298 and we're in the year 300. Only 2 to 3 years have passed, but this is where the 14-year gap like really, really starts to show its age. Is when we start talking about people like the Mad Maid and these characters we don't know much about all of a sudden coming to prominence. It's like 10 years too late, George.
We're going to meet these Hightowers. Like, Euron is going to take Old Town. He's going to be crowned king there, I'm pretty sure. We're going to meet them one way or the other.
We know that the Hightowers are opportunists and will do anything to save their own ass, so, yeah.
Right, that's the pattern with them. They always co-opt instead of resist. So it would make sense if they either try to co-opt or they straight up are co-opted. But it just makes sense that Leighton is Saruman, corrupted by Euron, who is Sauron, through the Palantir, which is the glass candle. Like, I think that would make sense if it turns out that way. Yeah. Who else do we have for Hands of White Fire Lady? It could be Daenerys, but this would be then like foreshadowing, because Daenerys is not at Euron's side yet, and we don't know if that'll happen. So that doesn't fit as well to me. It should be something that's currently happening to me, not a foreshadowing. So that would be like Melora Hightower or Viserion Spirit. Viserion Spirit, that would be a foreshadowing because he doesn't have that yet. And then it could be obviously like straight up Night's Queen. That's the other strong contender.
Well, and I've also heard people say it will be Melisandre.
That would be a foreshadowing, because Melisandre doesn't know Euron exists and has no contact with him. And there's so many miles between them. That's why I don't think that's Melisandre. She does have a scene where sorceress fires are playing around her fingers, and she is a shadow woman, conceivably. But I think they're too far away. And I mean, this would be like a Dream of Spring foreshadowing at this point, if they're going to come together. So
it's because of that figurine that George had commissioned that is like a icy version of Melisandre.
Right, which the point of that could just be to reveal the truth of Night's Queen. Like, he thinks about Night's Queen as icy Melisandre, so he wanted to see it. And this could be Night's Queen. That would be interesting because Euron has so much foreshadowing that he should lead the others. And we're kind of looking at it like, is this just a symbolic parallel? Like, Beric is doing Azor Ahai stuff. It's a parallel. Is Euron like, a symbolic Night's King? Or is he really going to be an ice wizard and control the others, or be inhabited by Night King's body or something like that? If this is Night's Queen's spirit here, then that would be, George taking the plot in that direction, essentially.
Well, and again, there's a Tolkien aspect to this. So it's what's her face again? Ungoliant. There's a lot of emphasis placed on hands when she is trying to get the jewels and then eventually the Silmarils from Morgoth. Mm-hmm. And the idea is she helped him destroy the two light trees, the world trees. She sucked them dry. She sucked all the light dry. And then and the deal was like, she helps him do this and, destroy those trees, and helps him, loot the place and leave. And he has to give her all of these jewels. He has to, give from both of his hands, was the wording. And he's only giving her of his left hand, the sinister left, right? And he's giving her all of these jewels that he stole from Feanor and the Noldor. And he's keeping the 3 Silmarils in the right, the 3 righteous jewels in the right. Mm-hmm. And she notices all of a sudden that he's not giving up all the jewels like he said he would. And she demands those jewels. And the thing is like, he can't hold them. And neither can she. Because what happens is when you hold them and you're not a righteous person, when you hold them in your hand, literally lights on fire for one character. So and it burns Morgoth's hands irreparably. So like the hands of white fire, her whole goal was to try to get a hold of that. And so there's kind of a what if aspect of if she got a hold of this. And the thing we have to remember is that Ungoliant wasn't originally a spider. She's a symbolic wife figure for Morgoth. And what happens to her, she becomes a spider when he's imprisoned. And he's imprisoned in the halls of Mandos, which is the underworld for elves in Tolkien's world. So he's symbolically dead, and she assumes the guise of a Black Widow spider. She's a Black Widow, but a widow is the point. So this whole she's supposed to be, they're supposed to be sharing jewels and stuff. He's supposed to be sharing, money with his, wife and widow. And there are a lot of things at play there. But the point is she's not ever supposed to get a hold of that. So this is kind of like a what if. It's disastrous. It's Ragnarok-esque.
So the only wife that Morgoth or Sauron ever had, this sort of archetypal character, is basically Ungoliant, is what you're saying.
Right. Morgoth had a symbolic wife, never a literal one, and it was Ungoliant. And then, of course, Sauron ends up doing the same thing, where, she is the one they even call it the doorbell when they go through that tunnel.
Oh, Shalob's lair. Yeah.
Yeah. So and so look who's come to the door and blah, blah, blah. And, who answers the door when you come into Sauron's house. And of course they call Mordor Sauron's house and Sauron's domain and stuff like that. And she answers the door, right?
Answers the Mordor. Yeah, I get it.
Mordor. Yeah.
So that's interesting, because Night's Queen she is the ice spider, like the frozen weirwood tree, the ice spider. That's just like Nissa Nissa is the Weirwood tree. Night's Queen is like the Weirwood tree, birthing the others, out of her spider body. So that could track with the whole like Corpse Queen is George's version of Ungoliant. Seeing her at Euron's side would make sense. Tim, let me let you cook on this idea of Night's Queen as the White Shadow.
Yeah, it's just how he gets there. Because I guess he is. I mean, I've said many times I think that Euron is essentially going to be whited. That seems to be his trajectory as the quintessential Lovecraft character. Anyone who goes messing with this stuff always tends to be taken over by something bigger than them. And then that could be the thing that leads him up north. I also I've talked about like what lays behind the crypts of Winterfell. We said like maybe Rhaegar's heart, maybe dragons, but I've said what lies beyond that caved in part would be possibly the body of Night's Queen. And so if Euron does get whited and starts making his way up north to lead the others, will he like come across like the true Night's Queen? Will she be resurrected in some way?
Well, that could be what she wants to get him to do, is to
So, it seems like, that might be the thing. It's between Bran, between Jon coming back as sort of a Cold Sand figure. Someone needs to go up north to try and break this spirit out of whatever prison it's locked in. And Euron could just be another one of these like possible prison breakers, I guess we could say, who's going to go up north.
Speaking of prison, they're talking about the Moon Door and Mordor. The jailer in the Eyrie is Mord. And, of course, Mord is a Sindarin word, which means black. Or is it Morn? You're muted, but Morn means black, yeah.
Actually, if we take this further beyond Lovecraft into the Derleth mythos. So after Lovecraft passed away, his friend August Derleth became the executive of his estate. And he finished some of Lovecraft's unfinished tales, and then he started creating his own mythos. In the Derleth mythos, there is another star that it is the star of Seleno, and on Seleno is a library filled with forbidden texts. It's knowledge that was stolen from the Elder Things and the Great Old Ones. So now let's think Euron's. So I've talked many times about Aldebaran and the Hades. So in Taros, the constellation of Taros, there are two star clusters. There's the Hades and the Pleiades, and these are both water nymphs. Aldebaran, the red star, follows the Hades, and that is where Hastur lives. So Euron's red eye, his blood eye, is mimicking Aldebaran, the bleeding star bespoke the end. But then his other eye, which is blue. Seleno is a blue star. So Aldebaran follows the Hades. Seleno is a real star, just like Aldebaran. It's behind the Pleiades, so it's called the Lost Pleiades. It is a blue star. And Euron is about to attack Old Town, right? Which is also this huge repository of knowledge. So Euron's eyes representing these two stars, a red star and a blue star respectively. And the blue star houses a library filled with forbidden knowledge. That could be a clue to Euron being the one who, he's going to be the one whited taken over to go break out Night's Queen, because he has the blue star eye that represents forbidden knowledge. And Euron has forbidden knowledge, if he's telling the truth, that he's been to Ashai, that he's been to Valyria, he has these artifacts, he knows all of these things that nobody else does. It's like he's been to the library of Seleno.
And he's going to take over Old Town, as you said, which has the library of the Citadel.
Yeah.
And he probably will go rifling around in there. If there are any old occult books down in the Citadel, which we know there are, he'd probably be interested in those. So, yeah.
Well, and the name Seleno, it's derived from Selene, the Greek goddess of the moon. So it's, a blue star, of course, the silver blue moon, which is usually how it's portrayed. And that in most mythologies, when we talk about like blue eyes that can see into the spirit world or the other world or the Duat in Egyptian mythology, like Horus's blue moon eye can see into the Duat. When you can use the moon, that essentially gives you extra knowledge, not of this earth, forbidden knowledge. So it's the same theme there.
Yeah, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. I would love for somebody to dig up Night's Queen from either the Night Fort or Winterfell. That would be sick. The chat, switching topics slightly, the chat is talking about the fact that we've never seen Highgarden. We've never seen Casterly Rock. We've never really we've only just barely been to Old Town, just a little. So yeah, there's one of the exciting things about Winds of Winter, should it ever get published, is like, the places we might go. There's definitely some places that have been built up quite a bit, especially in the world of Ice and Fire and Blood and stuff that we haven't seen. So yeah.
Laughs in 5-year gap.
Laughs in 5, yeah. I'm just going to keep saying it. I mean, he's written more pages for Winds of Winter than are in Dance with Dragons. He's just not finished yet. So he's written a lot of book. It's going to come out at some point, right?
I just have problems finishing these plot lines. He knows what he wants to do, but he does not know how he wants to do it.
And then Chad is bringing up Euron the idea of Euron giving up his eye and hanging himself like Odin. Yeah, we've talked about like maybe maybe his blood eye doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he's long since plucked that out. Maybe he'll have like some black stone in there, kind of like Crow's Food has a thing of dragon glass in his eye. Maybe Euron will pull his eye patch off and reveal that eye is long gone, something he plucked out and sacrificed a while ago.
I would definitely be very excited if there's an oily stone eye under there, and Crow's Food would be a precedent for that potentially.
Yeah, so he keeps his blue star eye and sacrifices the blood eye. Yeah, that's sacrificing a blood eye on a black stone altar, but keeping your blue star eye, which is also the repository of forbidden knowledge. Yeah, that's Lovecraft. That just became a whole new Lovecraft combo if that ends up being it.
Well, the other thing we got to mention here is Aemond One Eye, right? So he has the star sapphire eye. He is he's a dragon with a lot of Night's King symbolism, night black armor, riding not the pale dragon, but the ice dragon. Vagar's green and blue, which gives it and then the name named after Vega, which is a blue star. And so, Daemon, obviously, spoiler alert, he stabs Aemond in the eye. I forget which eye it is, if it's this one with the gem or if it's not.
It was the star sapphire eye. Yeah.
Okay. And so, but essentially we've got a blood eye and a blue eye happening. Like it's a blue eye first, and then it becomes a blood eye when we get the dragon sword jammed into it. So there's a lot of Euron eye symbolism there. And then what happens to him, he falls into the god's eye, which is a blue eye, but also it's the green sea, the blue version of the green sea. So this is definitely, and it's a Weirwood island. So everything about the god's eye is like falling into the Weirwood net or falling into specifically the frozen part of the Weirwood net for Night's King Aemond. So this is yet another foreshadowing that Euron is going to fall into the cold version of the Weirwood net, which might just be Shade of the Evening Land. But he could definitely be getting in touch with the Weirwood power of the others, like whatever that is. So.
And for another Euron Odin connection, so Odin hanging himself from the tree. But we talked like Euron, how do we know we can fly unless we take some great leap? And I've said like maybe Euron, I've talked about the idea of Euron possibly jumping from the high tower, because what would be the ultimate sacrifice for someone like Euron, who values nothing but himself, would be taking that leap from the high tower. Well, we just saw in this chapter one of his mooks, one of his henchmen was Pinchface John Meyer. House Meyer, their symbol is 9 nooses. So that's more Odin, Euron taking a leap becomes Odin hanging himself.
Yeah, I do think that makes sense.
And yeah, I mean, we said this and we didn't stop at the time, but all of the different names of his henchmen here that are mentioned at this little Last Supper
Mhm.
are very significant. Oh,
Yeah.
I brought up, Torwald. I mean, a very common name in modern Scandinavia is Torvald. It's spelled a little bit differently, but with a
Same
V
thing,
instead
yeah.
of a W, but it's the same idea. It's, Thor wood. So it's, in the, like I said, the sacred tree of Thor is an oak tree because Thor is a classic oak king, a king of summer. So we move on. We have the left hand Lucas Cod. He has all the Satan implications there, along with Jesus, which is, one's the even star, one's the morning star, and they both have that cycle. So it makes sense to kind of pair that symbolism together. The red oarsman, blah blah blah. But
Yeah, we did.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. When we were doing the heraldry of the Ironborn stream, I brought up like all of Euron. If we look at Euron supporters, it's all the monstrous houses. He's got the winches, the bloody moon, which also looks like a guillotine. He's got, I just said, the Myers. Their sigil is a hangman's noose. He's got the Cods, which are deep ones. Dagon Cod looked like his father had sired him upon the fish. He's got the Salt Cliffs. Their symbol is a black hydra. He's got the Orc Woods from Orkmont. So yeah, all of the monstrous, evil death houses among the Ironborn, they are the Euron supporters. It's like he's got his army of orcs and trolls and goblins.
Well, and like you think about Orkmont, Mont just means mountain. So
Yeah.
like you think about the Orc Mountain in a place where damn near everything is referencing Lord of the Rings. It's Mount Doom. And we see that constantly.
Right.
And we the chapter I just read or reread, Aeron goes to Hammerhorn Keep. That's obviously Helm's Deep that has, the place Helm Hammerhand blows the horn and the deeping wall, and so Hammerhorn Keep. And then there is a keep inside of the Great Wall at Helm's Deep. So it's all of it is very it's all Lord of the Rings coded.
There was also the Witch sigil and the Good Brother sigil. So we got the horn that looks a lot like Dragonbinder on the winch mysteriously, and then or on the Good Brother sigil. It's a black horn banded with gold. I mean, it's really weird. And then the winch one, which is the pulling down the moon, the bloody moon sickle. So yeah.
Well,
that's all in one piece.
A thing I like to remember is just because I'm of the opinion that Great Wick and Old Wick used to form a volcano that during the chaos of the Long Night went off. And we find a real life Good Brother horn in the far north at the Fist of the First Men, which is not a volcano, but it's a mound, kind of like a mini mountain that they shoot fire arrows out of and that they find obsidian at the base of. So it's like it's cosplaying a volcano. And of course, they find the horn there, and Jon gives it to Sam, right? Jon becomes the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and he's a secret king as well. But he becomes the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch largely because of Sam. Sam basically makes him the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, the Leal elder brother, because Night's Watch brothers, he's older than Jon.
Yeah,
so
he's the good brother priest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sam's a fit for a good brother. He is. He's very good.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, do you have anything that you haven't said that you want to say about this chapter?
Yeah. Just also, because I also read a Carcosa tale of Hastur in that Lovecraft stream. And we talked about like the High Towers probably submitting to Euron because they're going to do whatever they can to keep themselves alive. But by appeasing Euron like that, it's only going to strengthen him in the long run. So in Carcosa Tale, what happens in that is something falls from the sky and lands in the lake. And the people of the city of Carcosa begin making sacrifices to it in order to appease it. The idea is if we feed this thing, it will leave us alone. Turns out later on, the thing's never been eating the bodies. It's only been collecting them. And then later on, Carcosa, it said that the dead are walking in Carcosa again and attacking people. turns out this thing had only been collecting the bodies and now resurrects them as an army of the dead. So appeasing it only made it strong, like trying to appease it and keep it away only made it stronger in the long run. And then I realized, like, this is exactly what's happening with the others, right? Craster's sons, the other free folk. You talked about like the sea stone chair being possibly being an old sacrificial altar, and we see that with the weirwood,
a white tree, yeah.
The white tree where they find the baby's bones. We're trying to appease this thing so that it will leave you alone is only making it stronger in the long run because now you've just given it a personal army. And now it seems like Euron already is a Hastur figure, the King in Yellow and Carcosa and all that. And it seems like this could possibly be happening the same thing with Euron if he gets the High Towers on his side and just adds more rank to his army. That becomes more of him being a symbolic Night's King, taking over the others, and where the dead become his army. Everyone that Euron kills or dies fighting for him may stay with him if he becomes a new Night's King's figure.
Well, he's leading the drowned men now, and they are basically whites, by oath. So, I mean, check out Night King Crow's Eye, one of my older videos that's kind of just barely in the modern era of Lightbringer videos, and there's just a ton of Euron leading the other symbolism, so... Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a matter of how literal will it be. But if Euron is going to be leading the others, then I would say Hands of White Fire Lady is almost certainly Night's Queen. So,
yeah.
Yep. That is definitely the big mystery from this chapter, is that who is Hands of White Fire Lady. So
I think the roads lead to the far north. Someone's going to go there, and it seems like Euron might be the one who ends. Again, George has said we're going to see more of the far north and Winds of Winter than we've ever seen before, but we need a figure like for someone to physically go there. If it's not Bran looking through the eyes of a weirwood, like in the Heart of Winter, then we need someone like Cold Hands, someone who could physically go there, braving the elements, not needing to eat or sleep or anything like that.
Well, the other thing is that Waymar foreshadows both Jon and Euron, or he's got parallels to both of these characters. Obviously, he's got one blue eye like Euron. He also wears the sable cloak. It's only Euron and Waymar that have the sable cloak in the entire story. And when Waymar stands atop the ridge, his sable cloak blacks out the stars, just like Euron's sail. There's really a bunch of stuff. And I talked about that in the video called A New Night's King. But if you look at Waymar becoming the seventh other, symbolically, and the Night's King figure leading the others, he foreshadows either Jon or Euron doing that, or both, because they could steal Jon's body for a time, trying to make him the Night King vessel. Then he gets rescued by Mel and whoever else, Bran, and then they finally get Euron to do it. So it could be going that direction.
And we have three instances of Euron being cloaked in something. You mentioned the sable cloak. Then here, of course, this chapter, we end on the Valyrian steel armor, which he's wearing like silk. But before that, when Aeron cursed him, he had said, if I had the tongue of every man who cursed me, I could make a cloak out of them. So a lot of Euron and weird cloaks in this chapter.
Yeah, then they make that joke about Waymar having strangled, squeezed the heads off all the weasels or whatever to make the cloak himself.
He's also, he does a few different metal songs in this chapter, as we've mentioned. So when we talk about him having a bunch of tongues.
Oh, yeah, that right. So the last stanza of Sound of Silence. So the ending here, when they tie him to the prow, and the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, so Euron and his lackeys. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. Then the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls in tenement halls and whispered in the sound of silence. So,
a whispering sound, right where Euron is sailing.
Yeah, he's going up the whispering sound.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah. And Holy Diver. So after they tie Aeron to the prow, you're the star of the masquerade. No need to look so afraid. Jump on the tiger. You can feel his heart, but you know he's mean. Some light can never be seen. Holy diver.
Jump on the masquerade. Jump on the mast.
Yeah. But he is
And riding the tiger is just that metaphor for like a sword without a hilt. It's the same idea. Like you're trying to handle this power, but there's no safe way to do it. Because
Yeah,
eventually
it's also
you got to get off the tiger. And
it's a euphemism for a few specific kinds of drugs as well. And of course, he's taking Shade of the Evening, a hallucinogen, in this chapter.
he's chasing the dragon for sure.
Yeah. Riding
We've
the tiger, chasing the dragon. But yeah, in the naked light I saw, and of course, Aeron is, naked in his cell with that horrible water.
We had Talking Heads. We had Simon and Garfunkel. We had Theo. a lot of music to this chapter.
Nice. And people already have the Hello Darkness, My Old Friend meme with John anyway, because he's always looking gloomy and shit. So this is coming full circle. It's great.
Yeah. Jon Snow, poor bastard. I mean, if anybody is, drowned and dead may never die, it's the dude whose face has been down in the snow for 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then poor Danny's been, sick and delirious for 14 years, shitting brown water and bleeding and stuff. I mean, George really has...
Aeron.
Aeron down too long in the Midnight Sea, down in that dungeon that's been flooding, but won't flood enough to just finally drown him.
So the Jethro Tull song that you really want to look up is Cup of Wonder, Kinhora. That's the one.
You mean for this chapter?
Just for Ice and Fire in general, Cup of Wonder.
Okay. He has a few.
It's the jacket, and that and Jack and the Green sort of go together.
Yeah. And the Hooded Crow, yeah.
And it's all songs from the Wood. That's all songs from the Wood stuff. So we'll talk about Aqualung a different time. We'll break down the 3 verses of Aqualung and all the different time signatures and things.
God, I used Aqualung in one of my meme videos for Craster.
Craster's sitting on the park bench for sure with Batman's head. Yeah,
that's what I thought. He's sitting on a park bench eyeing little girls. But anyway, 14 years, we've all been patch-faced. We've all been down too long in the Green Sea.
We're basically like Piat Pri at this point, just chained up to the wall going, Winds of Winter! This year!
Yeah, Pikachu, just out there yelling his own name.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just stuck in his Pokeball, that poor little bastard.
And,
well, there you go, guys. Let's go ahead and wrap this up then before we hit 3 hours. Thank you all. You've been a beautiful audience. I will have a Baylor Breakspear video coming out this week. I got to go edit it as soon as we get offline here and get it to my editor. And then I'm going to do, the week after, I'm going to do a big Blackfire Rebellion video, summary of the first Blackfire Rebellion. And... which will be fun because we always talk about that sort of stuff in live streams and it gets all meandery. So this will be nice, tight Blackfire Rebellion recap with all the characters and motivations. And then the other thing is that next, we got 2 streams left, 2 Sundays left before Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's kind of crazy, but next Sunday will be the 11th, and then the one after that will be the 18th, and that's premiere day. So what we're going to do is next Sunday we'll have a very special stream, and that one's going to be me and Tim and a new guest that you've never met, and we're going to talk about Targaryen history, like favorite Targaryens from history. Tim, are you available next week?
Yeah, I am.
There you go. And then in 2 weeks, we will do some sort of preview. That'll be like the day of, and I'll probably get Nettles for that one. Because I think she's down to do post-game stuff. So,
okay, good to have her back.
Yeah. Have you talked to her recently, Sean?
No.
I'm sure she'll be good to go.
Since right after she had the baby and she tuned in for a stream, and she texted me the baby's name. Well, you were speculating what the baby's name was.
I think that's the last time I spoke with her too. But I'll send her a message and roust her up. But yeah, we're shifting into Night of the Seven Kingdoms mode. Basically, is the idea. So, and I will have a new guest next week that will be that you guys will like a lot. So don't miss that. And yeah, so
and I've been getting some people in my Patreon, and I have a Discord now, and we have a book club. And anyway, they want you teased them with the Silmarillion reads, and we've gotten preoccupied, obviously. But at some point, we got to do those Silmarillion reads.
I would like to do those. Yeah, maybe in between seasons, because of course, House of the Dragon season 3 would be in August, so we've got some months in between there.
And isn't Night of the Seven Kingdoms is only going to be 6 episodes, I believe?
Only 6,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So that'll run into like the first week of March, basically. And then it will be done. So that's it. There you go, guys. Discord link. Yeah, we're going to post that. Thanks for reminding me. As soon as I end the stream, I will post it. Sean, your Discord link is where?
My Discord link is in the Patreon. You have to be a Patreon member to be in our Discord. We're keeping it fairly small, but yeah, we've got some things going. We're working on a D&D group, but we've got a book club. We just did Wicked, which is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. And next we're doing Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Philip K. Dick. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, book clubs are definitely popular. It's a real good way to make friends and have the same kind of fun that we have here, but you guys can get in on it a little more than in the chat. So yeah, that's cool. And then I'll post my Discord link on everywhere when this is done. So thank you all for coming. Check out Grey Waste Tim's YouTube channel. What are you saying there, Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say my channel is Grey Waste Tim, and you can follow me on Twitter at the Grey Waste. If you'd like to be having that light bulb moment with the Library of Toledo, go check out the Lovecraft holiday special. I had a lot of light bulb moments, especially when someone sent me a Lovecraft Christmas poem, and I went on this whole tirade about the Hounds of Tyndalos, which I realized George might also invoke later on down the line. So there was a lot of tinfoil cooking in that one. And then next Sunday is the premiere of Primal Season 3. So for all you Gennady Tartakovsky fans, Spear is back and he is too angry to die. So we need to see how that goes. That's very heavy. I love that show because it's very heavily Conan inspired. A lot of Robert E. Howard inspirations in Primal. So along with very excited for that and the Night of Seven Kingdoms. I got a lot to look forward to in my TV.
You know, Tim, if you wanted to really break through into the mainstream, you should be talking about Stranger Things and explaining to people the Lovecraftian influence on Stranger Things, because there is a fair amount.
I'd have to watch it.
I
watched the first season, and then I couldn't get into the second season, and I kind of just dropped off on it. So all the Stranger Things talk that's going on, I'm completely out of the loop. I don't know what the whole hullabaloo and controversy is that's going on with season 5. I just heard that it ended like a wet fart is basically what I'm
All
hearing.
I know is one of the first things.
Wrong.
They're
What's
wrong.
that?
They are wrong. It was fantastically done. This is the first time in years I can think of where a show's ending actually retroactively made the entire show better instead of worse. Endings are harder to write than anything else writing. It's so brutal to try to put up, a satisfying finish to every individual character's arc, especially when you've gone through 5 seasons and you have so many characters that, how many characters do you like in Stranger Things? Like, how many characters do you think of when I say the show? It's not just the main 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, the different parents. And as the show has gone on, certain characters that were more background at times became more foreground, and they all had to have their arcs finished. They did a fantastic job on the final season of Stranger Things. And not only that, but they connected it up to fantastic reference. And no, it was just, without any spoilers, it was excellently done. And I hate that it's gotten a bad rep across the internet, that it's, somehow analogous to the Game of Thrones endings. It's not. The Game of Thrones ending straight up ignored certain character arcs. It retroactively changed entire character arcs. It was extremely poorly done. Whereas, no, Stranger Things, that was fantastic. I was very happy with the ending there. And I do not hand out that kind of praise to TV shows.
Well, that's interesting. A lot of the chat agrees with you. Somebody I know that is really into it liked the ending as well. So yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm seeing more people. It seems more controversial than poorly done. Like, I don't really see anybody saying it was poorly done. It's more like some people just didn't agree with what happened or not. But yeah, interesting. It is definitely hard to land the plane. I mean, Robert Jordan wrote 12 books and then pieced out, and then Sanderson had to come and finish it, which I think he did a pretty good job of. But you that last book where Sanderson is doing the last battle, the Wheel of Time last battle. There are so many characters that have to have their little fights and stuff. It really does feel like the climax of a Marvel movie or something like that. That's one of the reasons why I need George to finish Ice and Fire. Is not just so we can see the end of the story, but like as a aspiring writer, how do you end a story well? Like, that's the hardest thing.
It's hard, and not everybody does it well. Obviously, one of the reasons why we're all still so hung up on Tolkien as the gold standard for fantasy is because he did a fantastic job writing it. It was not just happy porn at the end. It was complicated, but it felt earned, it felt satisfying, and it wasn't just uniformly happy. Uniformly happy endings are not the satisfying endings we want.
No, the Denethor, Boromir, Faramir thing is full of complexity, and Gollum, Scouring of the Shire. There's so many things that are interesting, and like
Frodo leaving, that was heartbreaking. Having Frodo say, like, I never healed, like carrying the weight of the ring and taking that wound, like there's a darkness in my soul that will never be right. The Shire doesn't even feel right for me. I have to leave. And he leaves all of the people closest to him forever, and they cry their eyes out. Like, that's an ending that isn't happy, but it's beautiful. It feels earned, and it makes sense with all of their characters. And
it greatens his sacrifice. It's like he's not done he's still got to carry this with him, just like any combat veteran will tell you. Like, you're not going to be the same. You're going to carry that with you.
Well, and not to get too much into the weeds, into the symbolism, but Frodo is a Jesus and Beowulf character, and so it is meant to be a sacrifice. So he didn't physically die, but he had a symbolic death where Sam thought he was dead with Shelob. And he's carrying this ring across Mordor, and the weight is getting heavier and heavier, like when Jesus carried the crucifix.
Absolutely.
And so at the end, he has to go into the west, where, again, the elven halls of Mandos are, where the elves go when they die. And so it is meant to be like the underworld. He has to move on from this world in order to, so it is like a death again. And that's the point, is it was a sacrifice. And that's why it feels, even though, everybody was hurt by that ending, it felt right.
So I've had a couple people ask about the shirt. This shirt is made by a company called Birds, and you can find them in like hip hop clothing shops and like skatewear shops. I don't know if you can get them online or not, but that's as big a tip as I can give you. That's why it says, "Why the birds destroy your mind." They're shouting out their brand. By the way, the rest of this, Sean, you like this? It's got a picture of Beethoven and the Sex Pistols, and it says, "If you can't tell the difference, you must be an animal." So anyway, so there you go, guys. Love y'all. Happy New Year. And like I said, I'll have Baelor Breakspear out in a few days. You can find these gentlemen's channels linked in the description below the video. I'll get the new Discord link out. You've been a beautiful audience. See you later.